Hello everyone, I know you are going to use this video for falling asleep, so before that, like this video, subscribe to the channel and let me know where you are from, also what time is it. The first thing you need to know is this: Leela didn't mean to vanish. But she did. She disappeared without a sound from a room that had only one exit. A room bolted shut from the inside, with no sign of struggle, no trace of departure. Just an open window and the lingering smell of rain on old wood, and I was the last person to see her. That's not even the worst part. The worst part is, I'm starting to forget her face. It's been 6 days since Leela went missing at the Wetlow Inn, and I haven't slept since the second night. I've heard things. Things that do not belong in the realm of the living. Whispers, dragging footsteps in the attic when no one is up there. A shadow shaped like a man but moving like something broken. I should have listened to the old man at the gas station when he said, "Don't go near the woods after sunset. And for the love of God, don't ask about the 7th room." But I didn't, because people like me, we don't believe warnings wrapped in folklore. We laugh them off, call them campfire stories, urban legends. Until something starts watching you while you sleep. Until someone you love just vanishes. You're probably wondering how this started. I'll tell you. But don't expect to sleep well after. Leela and I weren't supposed to be at the Wetlow Inn in the first place. We were heading to the coast for a weekend escape, a chance to get away from the city and the stifling weight of our day-to-day lives. She was burnt out from her hospital shifts, and I just needed to breathe. A landslide blocked the main highway just an hour into our trip. GPS rerouted us through an old scenic back road winding through the Pineclaw forest. A place so dense it looked like it was swallowing the sky. Trees older than the country loomed over us like quiet sentinels. We drove in silence, lulled by the rhythm of tires over gravel. That's when the storm hit. A sudden deluge of rain made the road nearly invisible. With low fuel and almost no cell service, we took the only turn we could, onto a muddy path barely wide enough for our car. A hand-painted sign pointed the way. Momu Ilif Ilato INN. 3 miles it looked abandoned, probably should have been. The Wetlow Inn stood at the edge of the tree line like a scar on the earth. Victorian era, 4 stories high, paint peeling like burnt skin. The windows were too tall, too narrow. The whole building gave the impression of something craning its neck toward the woods. Watching, Leela was hesitant. This place looks wrong. She always had a sharp gut instinct. I should have taken it more seriously. A bell chimed as we entered. The kind of sound that didn't quite match its source. The air inside smelled like dried lavender and mildew. There was no one at the front desk. Not at first. The innkeeper appeared out of nowhere, like he'd stepped out from behind a curtain we couldn't see. Tall, thin, a face that could have belonged to anyone, or no one. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He didn't blink once. "Welcome," he said, sliding an old brass key across the counter. "Room 6. End of the hall." "We didn't book anything," I said. His smile widened. "The inn makes room." The moment he said that, I felt the smallest pulse of static in the air. My skin prickled, but Leela touched my hand and whispered, "We'll just stay the night." We should have left then. Room 6 smelled like forgotten books and rain-soaked ash. The wallpaper curled at the edges. A faded floral pattern that seemed to shift slightly when you weren't looking. The window overlooked the woods, but the trees stood so still it was unnatural, even for windless weather. It was only when I tried the light switch that I noticed the lamp's cord had been cut. Still, we were too tired to care. We laid in silence on the old spring mattress, listening to the creaks and groans of the building. Sometime around midnight, I heard it, a whisper. Low, guttural, like someone murmuring from inside the walls. I sat up. "Leela, did you hear that?" But she was already sitting up, eyes wide, staring at the door. "I thought someone just said my name," she whispered. "We didn't sleep. Morning brought no relief. The innkeeper was gone. The lobby was empty. No guests, no staff. The power was still out, and the front door locked, padlocked from the inside. Lila was trying to stay calm, but I saw the cracks forming. She paced the lobby, hands trembling, until something caught her eye behind the reception desk. A guest book. The first page dated back to 1964. The last entry was ours. We hadn't signed anything. That night, things got worse. The whispering came back, only louder, more urgent. It wasn't just in the walls now. It was in the mirror, in the floorboards, in the very air. Leela said she saw someone standing at the foot of the bed, a woman with black eyes and no mouth. I believed her, because I saw her too. She was gone the moment I blinked, but the smell of rotting lilies lingered, like something had died in the room decades ago and never been moved. We barricaded the door, moved the dresser, the chair, even the nightstand. But the whispering didn't care. On the third night, Leela disappeared. She got up to use the bathroom. I remember hearing the sink squeak on. The door creaked shut. Then silence. I waited 5 minutes. 10. I knocked. No answer. I opened the door. The bathroom was empty. The only window was shut. No signs of struggle. Just steam on the mirror and 3 words written with a finger, "Seichi heard me." I screamed her name until my throat bled. The innkeeper was still missing. The halls were darker now, not just because of the broken lights, but because the shadows seemed to move on their own. I went to every room, every hallway, screaming for her. All of them were locked, except one. Room 7. It was at the far end of the hall, behind a curtain of moth-eaten lace. I hadn't seen it before. I was sure it hadn't been there. The door was slightly ajar. Inside was only darkness. Not the absence of light, but something heavier, thicker. It felt alive. I didn't go in. Not that night. Now, 6 days have passed. I've broken into the innkeeper's office. I've found files, records of guests that never left. Every decade, the same pattern. 2 people arrive. 1 disappears. 1 remains, slowly forgetting until they vanish too. There are photos, black and white, faded. In one of them, from 1981, is a woman with eyes just like Leela's. I checked the name. Lillian Gray, same birthmark, same eyes, same smile, same name. My Leela's full name is Lillian Gray. She never told me. Or maybe she didn't know. I've started to forget things. The shape of her nose. At the sound of her laugh. I try to hold on, but it slips like water through fingers. I write things down, hoping to keep them. Hoping that I won't be next. But I'm changing too. Last night, I found a mirror in the hallway. My reflection blinked at a different time. I'm not sure how long I have. There's only one thing left for me to do. I'm going into room 7. Not to save her. Not anymore. But to find out what this place wants. What it's keeping. Because something tells me she's still there. And she's not alone. They say once you open a door you're not supposed to, it never really closes behind you. It stays cracked somewhere deep inside, whispering through the sliver, reminding you of the mistake you made. That's what room 7 feels like. Even before I touched the knob, even before I stepped inside, it was already inside me. Breathing against the walls of my mind, inching into places no room should ever reach. I waited until dusk. The inn is louder after sundown. The creaks grow bolder, and the floor groans like it's carrying more than just my weight. Sometimes I swear I hear footsteps matching mine, half a second too late. It's hard to explain, but when you've been here long enough, you start to feel like the building is watching you, learning you, adapting to your fear. You feel ridiculous for thinking it at first until you don't. The door to room 7 was waiting, as always. Unmarked. The brass knob was cold. Far colder than it should have been, and as I turned it, I half expected resistance. An invisible force. Maybe a lock that only opens for the damned. But no. It opened like it had been waiting all along. The air was thick. Not stale, like you'd expect from a sealed-off room, but heavy, humid, as though the room had been crying for hours, and the tears had nowhere to go. There were no windows. Just darkness, pulsing gently like a breathing lung. My flashlight flickered the moment I stepped in. Batteries were new. That didn't matter. Electronics die quicker in this place. As though they know they're not welcome here, I stepped inside. The door didn't slam shut like in the movies. It whispered shut. Soft, deliberate, final. The room was larger than it had any right to be. The walls curved ever so slightly, like a rib cage, and the wallpaper was a deep, pulsing red that looked like it had been painted in blood and regret. At the center stood a chair, plain wood, placed carefully on a faded circle etched into the floorboards. Surrounding it were symbols, scratched in, burned in, inked, painted, layered over and over. Some of them were in languages I didn't recognize. Some looked like they weren't meant to be read at all. And in the corner, a mirror, tall, cracked, covered with a cloth so old it had turned yellow and stiff. I didn't want to touch it. Every instinct screamed at me to leave it alone, but something moved behind it. I froze. Breath caught in my throat. A whisper again, this time clearer. "Don't let it see you." It wasn't Leela's voice, but it wasn't unfamiliar either. I backed away, eyes on the mirror, my flashlight stuttering like a heartbeat. The chair in the center creaked on its own. I turned, and for a brief, harrowing second, I saw a figure sitting there, a woman in a hospital gown, long dark hair hanging like a curtain, feet bare, arms resting gently on her knees. Then the light blinked again, and she was gone. The mirror cloth shifted. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. But it didn't matter. The cloth began to lift on its own, pulled by something I couldn't see. Slowly, deliberately, until the cracked surface showed my reflection. Except it wasn't me. Not exactly. The face looking back was mine, but older, tired, pale, hollowed out from the inside like a tree rotted from the root. And behind him, behind me, was Leela. She stood a step back, one hand on my shoulder, eyes wide with that silent scream I hadn't seen since the night she vanished. Her lips were moving over and over, the same two words. "Help me." My chest seized. I turned, but no one was there. When I looked back at the mirror, the image had changed. It showed room 6, our room. But not how I remembered it. The walls were drenched in black mold. The bed was soaked through with something dark and moving. And in the corner, Leela, bent over, back to me, sobbing into her hands, shoulders twitching, a low, gurgled cry echoing from her chest. I reached out instinctively, touching the mirror's surface. It was warm. Then, an arm shot through, black and twisted, fingers too long. It grabbed my wrist and pulled. I screamed, fought, fell backward hard enough to slam into the floor, the back of my head hitting the wood with a sickening crack. The mirror shattered. Shards fell around me like frozen rain, some slicing my arm as they landed. But the hand was gone. And so was the vision. The room was silent again, until the whisper returned, louder now, coming from the walls, from the floor, from inside my own head. "You opened the door. Now it knows your name." I stumbled to my feet, bleeding dizzy. My vision danced with little bursts of light, but I could still make out something scratched into the mirror frame. "Onoan returnes." I didn't know what it meant. Not yet. I made it back to room 6 with blood running down my arm, vision blurry, chest heaving. The door wouldn't lock anymore. I pushed the dresser against it and collapsed on the bed. That's when I noticed something that hadn't been there before. A photo, tucked into the corner of the mirror. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was Leela, and me. But we were older. The photo was aged, sun-bleached. In it, we stood outside the inn, smiling. Except I don't remember taking this picture. And Leela, her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her hand in mine looked stiff, like it wasn't her choice. I flipped the photo. Written in smudged pencil, "Don't believe what you see. It lies." I dropped the photo. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Everything I thought I understood about this place was falling apart. I used to think the inn was haunted, maybe even cursed. But now it felt like something far worse. It wasn't just a place. It was a trap, a living thing, a cycle that had gone on long before I arrived. Before Leela, before anyone, something brought people here, broke them, erased them. And I was next. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Leela, standing at the foot of the bed, face hidden behind her hair, whispering things I couldn't understand. At one point, I woke to find the closet door open, though I remember closing it. Inside, another photo. This one much older, black and white. It was the same room, same pose, different people. A man with hollow eyes and a woman with a stitched smile. They looked just as lost, and just as trapped. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't leaving without her. Even if it meant going back into that room. Even if it meant facing whatever lies behind the mirror. Because deep down, I knew the truth. Leela was still here. But not for long. There's something that changes in you when you know the place you're in doesn't follow the same rules as the rest of the world. Time slips. Sounds stretch and loop. And your memories, your own, start to feel borrowed. Like someone else lived them and left the pieces behind for you to assemble. Only now they don't quite fit. I woke on the floor, though I'd fallen asleep in the bed. The sun, if you can still call it that, bled through the curtains in a strange, sour yellow. It had no warmth, no movement, just a smothered light, like someone had painted it on the windows with a dying hand. Outside, the woods didn't sway. Birds didn't sing. It was like the world was frozen at the edge of its breath. The inn was quieter than ever. Too quiet, but not still, not safe. Something had changed. The photo of Leela and me, that sun-bleached lie I found last night, was gone. So was the broken glass from the mirror. The dresser I had shoved against the door had been moved slightly to the left, just enough to let the door almost open. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't marked the floor with blood from the cut on my wrist the night before. The line was broken, smudged, as if something had stepped over it, or through it. I should have panicked, screamed, maybe even run. But when fear stretches that far, it goes silent. You begin to function on something colder, sharper. Survival, yes, but not just from danger, from forgetting. Because every minute here seemed to dull the edges of Leela in my mind. Her voice was already slipping away. The shape of her hands. The exact color of her laugh. Yes, I meant that. Because some laughs have color. Hers was bright, like yellow silk. Now it was gray, dim. And I think that's what the inn wants. For you to forget just enough to stop looking. To let go. I started writing things down. Everything I could remember about Leela. Where we met. Her favorite coffee shop. The scar on her ankle from when she fell off her bike as a kid. I wrote them in the margins of the wallpaper, on the mirror with toothpaste, on the soles of my shoes. I whispered them under my breath until they became a chant. Because I didn't trust the walls. And I knew they were listening. I had to go back to room 7, but not without answers. The innkeeper's office wasn't locked. That was the first warning. It welcomed me now. Drawers that had once resisted were now yawning open, spilling their contents across the room like an open wound. Files, photos, maps of the inn with annotations in sharp, hurried pen strokes. Someone had been trying to map this place. Someone who had failed, because every map ended the same way, with a giant black X over room 7 and one sentence scrawled in the corner, OLYO and ready URS. That phrase again. It wasn't a warning, it was a rule. There was a journal hidden beneath the floorboard under the desk. The binding was cracked, pages soft with age and damp. The name inside was faded, almost gone, but I could make out the initials HH. Whoever they were, they had spent a long time inside the inn. Long enough to document what they'd learned. The entries were broken and scattered, but one line stood out, underlined 3 times. They come in pairs, always in pairs. The inn feeds on the bond. Devars one, marks the other. Only one leaves. Only one remembers, if they're lucky. I turned the page, hands trembling. Sometimes, the one who stays becomes part of the inn. I slammed the book shut. I couldn't breathe. Was that what happened to Leela? Was she still Leela? Or something else now? The more I thought, the colder I got. That's when I heard it again, a whisper, but not the same one from before. This was Leela's voice, clear, urgent. Don't believe the faces, it uses them. Keep going. She was close, not in my head, not a memory. Here. The air changed as I stepped into the hallway. The lights buzzed, faint, desperate little flickers, and one by one, the doors along the corridor began to open, creaking slowly. Inside each room, a different scene played out like warped theater. Room 1, a man standing perfectly still in the corner, facing the wall, no sound. Just him, unmoving. But when I blinked, his head turned an inch. Room 2, a bathtub filled with black water. A hand slowly rising from beneath the surface, palm open as if asking for help. But it never reached higher than that, just hovered. Room 3, a mirror that showed me standing alone in the room, but with a second shadow behind me, slowly raising a hand toward my neck. Room 4, a woman laughing in the dark, rocking in a chair that wasn't there. Room 5, empty except for a typewriter still clacking, typing words into nothing, as though a story was being written by invisible fingers. I didn't stop. Room 6 was ours. But it was different now. Covered in vines, rotten leaves, dirt on the sheets like the forest had begun to reclaim it from within. And then room 7. The door was gone. Not locked, not blocked, gone, replaced by a brick wall, freshly painted over to match the others. It hadn't been like that before. Someone, or something, was sealing it away. But why? Because something got out, or something wanted me in. I didn't know what I was doing when I grabbed the fire axe from the emergency box at the end of the hall. It felt impulsive, reckless. But as I slammed the blade into the wall, brick by brick, something inside me said, "Good. You're getting close." The wall blood. Not dust. Not mortar. Blood. I staggered back, heart pounding. From behind me, a voice whispered, "You broke the rule." I turned. The innkeeper. Except not him. His skin was cracked, like dried leather stretched too far. His eyes were hollow. And his mouth, it was too wide now. Grinning without lips. "You can't take her. She's part of the inn." I raised the axe. My hands were shaking. "She's not yours," I hissed. His head twitched. "Then go to her. See what's left." He stepped aside. The wall was gone. Room 7 had returned, wide open. Dark. Waiting. I walked in without thinking. The air was thicker, alive, breathing. And at the center, the chair again. Occupied this time. Leela. Tied, eyes shut. Still. I ran to her, shook her. Called her name. She opened her eyes. And something else opened with them. The walls began to drip. Not water, but a black sludge that smelled like burning paper and spoiled meat. The floor buckled. The mirror screamed. And Leela, she smiled. Not sweet. Not hers. The smile of something pretending to be someone it had eaten. But only halfway through. It's hard to describe the way her face changed, because it didn't, not entirely. Leela still looked like Leela. Her eyes were still that soft, stormy gray. Her hair still curled behind her ears the way it always did when she was nervous. But the way her lips stretched into that smile, it was wrong. Too wide. Too sure. Like it wasn't her expression at all. But something else wearing her face, puppeting her muscles, reaching out from beneath her skin to mimic something it thought I'd trust. I froze in front of her, one foot still half raised. Halfway through my desperate lunge to untee her. My fingers twitched. My throat tried to form words, but my tongue was heavy, like someone had poured wet cement down my throat. She blinked, slow and deliberate, then tilted her head. "You found me," she said. Her voice, almost her voice, drifted out like it had been reheated. Hollow, solace. A version of her from some place without warmth. "I never stopped looking," I said, though the words came out too soft. Her smile faltered, just slightly. That's what gave it away. Leela's smile never faltered when I said things like that. It deepened. lit up her whole face. This one. This one twitched like it had heard the line too many times, and couldn't remember the right response. She looked down at the ropes tying her to the chair. They weren't ropes anymore. They were vines now, thick, knotted ones, like something pulled from deep underground. They moved subtly, tightening, and loosening around her wrists like they were breathing, like they were alive. "I missed you," she said, and this time, there was something beneath the words, like it wasn't a sentence, it was a test. A hand reaching out with the wrong number of fingers, just to see if I'd notice. "I missed you too," I replied, but I didn't move. The room pulsed. The walls rippled slightly, like the breath of a deep, sleeping animal. I could feel it now. Whatever the inn was, this room was its heart, its mouth, its feeding ground. The thing in Leela's shape leaned forward just an inch. Her eyes glimmered in the dark like polished stone. "Will you cut me loose?" That was the question. Not "can you," not "please." Just "will you?" As if it already knew I could. As if it was waiting for me to choose the wrong thing. I looked at her wrists again, pale, bruised, human, but not twitching, not struggling, not Leela. I reached for the axe, not to swing it, just to hold it. The smile dropped, not fully, but enough to show irritation. "You're afraid," it said. "No," I replied. "I'm remembering." The room groaned, a deep, guttural sound from beneath the floorboards. The chair trembled. Leela's body spasmed once, then went limp. For a second, just a second, I thought she was gone again. But then the figure snapped upright, eyes burning. She screamed. Not in pain, not in fear, in rage. The voice that came from her wasn't Leela's, it was deeper. Wet, like it had drowned 100 times and learned to speak afterward. "She's mine," it growled. "You came too late. She chose me." I stepped back, axe raised. "She didn't choose you. She opened the door," it hissed. "She called for help." I answered. "You were too slow." That hit deeper than I wanted to admit, because it was true. Leela had cried for help. That first night, she'd heard the whispers before I did. She saw the woman with the black eyes before I believed her. She'd been slipping long before she vanished, and I was too wrapped up in trying to rationalize the horror to pull her back. And in that moment of hesitation, something else reached her first. "I want her back," I said, voice low. "You want a memory," it replied, smiling again. "You want a ghost with her voice. You want to rewind time. But she's here now, and she belongs." "No one belongs to you," I spat. Its face twitched. The skin on its neck rippled, like something underneath was trying to peel out. Then, slowly, the thing stood. Not all the way. Its legs bent wrong. The knees didn't lock. They curved back, like a fawn's legs shattered and set the wrong way. The body moved like meat being puppeted. Her arms stretched longer than they should have, and her fingers dragged against the floor with a soft, wet sound. It towered over me and smiled. "You could stay," it said. "She'd like that. You could join her. I'm not dying here." It laughed, a low, warbled sound that echoed from the walls. Not dying. Changing. That's when the vines came to life. They shot from the floor and walls, twisting through the air like serpents, lunging toward my legs. I swung the axe, slicing one mid-lash, the blade tearing through it with a sick, fibrous snap. Black ichor sprayed across my jeans. The smell hit next, rot and mildew, thick enough to gag me. The room had no doors anymore, just walls, and that mirror, still cracked, still humming. I knew what I had to do. The thing lunged. I ran, not toward the chair, not toward Leela, but to the mirror. Because something told me the answer wasn't in saving her body. It was in saving what was left. And whatever was still her was behind the glass. I threw myself into the mirror with the axe raised high. The impact didn't come. I didn't crash. I didn't even fall. I sank. It was cold. Not air cold, but soul deep. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. I felt pulled, like threads unraveling from my body in every direction. The darkness around me wasn't empty. It watched. It probed. It whispered in my own voice. It offered me things I didn't want to hear. She's gone. Stay. Forget, it's easier. But I didn't listen. I forced my thoughts back to Leela. Her real laugh, the way she wrinkled her nose when she read Menace, how she sang off, key in the car. I held those thoughts, gripped them like a rope. The space around me cracked. Light. Just a sliver. And behind it, her, Leela, not the thing. Her, curled in the dark, eyes shut, arms folded across her chest like she was hiding inside herself. Waiting. Dreaming. I reached out. Her fingers twitched. She opened her eyes. And this time, the smile was real. She knew me. She remembered. Take my hand, I said. She did. The world snapped like a stretched rubber band. And we were back in room 7. The creature was gone. The vines, recoiling, dying, curling into brittle husks. Leela collapsed into my arms, breath shaky, skin ice cold. But alive. Truly. I carried her back to room 6. The hallway was different now. Brighter, though no lights were on. The doors were shut. The whispers quiet. The mirror in our room was whole again, and taped to it a key. Not brass, silver. Attached to a tag. Farm Doar. We didn't waste time, we ran. Down the stairs, past the empty lobby, through the broken shadows of the place that had nearly taken everything. The front door opened without a sound, and the world outside was no longer frozen. Wind rustled the trees. Birds sang. The sun moved. We didn't look back, not even once. But that night, in a cheap roadside motel 3 towns away, I found something in my jacket pocket. A photo. Of me and Leela. But not any we'd taken. We were outside the inn again, smiling. And behind us, barely visible in the window above, the innkeeper, grinning, eyes black, watching, waiting. We made it out. That's what I keep telling myself. We left. We stepped through the front door of the Whitlow Inn and crossed into the sunlight like survivors clawing their way out of a collapsed grave. And for a few hours, maybe less, maybe more, we believed it. That we had broken the pattern. That the curse, the cycle, whatever the hell it was, had been beaten. That we were safe. But the truth is, safety never really returned with us. It only followed us home, hiding just behind the silence. It began with the lights. The motel room we'd crashed in, somewhere off Route 77, had these cheap yellow bulbs that flickered constantly. At first I thought it was faulty wiring, normal, explainable. But then the flickering began to repeat itself, always in sets of 7. 7 fast blinks, then a pause. 7 again, over and over. And when I looked close enough, I realized the light wasn't just flickering. It was pulsing, like it was sensing to a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Then came the shadows. They didn't move the way they should. I'd catch them stretching across the ceiling, even when nothing else in the room did. They'd appear in corners that weren't there seconds ago. Leela tried to pretend she didn't notice, but she stopped looking in mirrors after our second day on the road. I didn't ask why. I already knew. Something had followed us. Not the creature from room 7. That thing, that presence, it didn't need to chase us. It had left a piece behind. Maybe in me, maybe in her. Maybe in both. Leela started sleepwalking. The first time, I woke up to the sound of the sink running. She was standing there, in the bathroom, her hands submerged in freezing water, eyes wide open, but completely unseeing. When I called her name, she didn't flinch, didn't blink, just whispered something low and broken, over and over. They're knocking, they're knocking. I tried to shake her. She didn't react. And then she screamed, loud enough to crack the silence open like a fault line. I pulled her away from the sink and wrapped her in a towel. She sobbed against my shoulder, like a child waking from the kind of nightmare that doesn't leave when you open your eyes. They're knocking, she kept saying. Why can't you hear them? I didn't answer. Because I could. I just didn't want to believe it yet. 3 nights later, in another town, another hotel, we heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. Soft, precise. Always in groups of 7. It never came from the same place. Sometimes the closet. Sometimes the walls. Once, It came from under the bed. But it always started at the same time, 3:07 a.m. We never made it to sleep after that. Leela stopped speaking much. She wouldn't eat anything unless I tasted it first. Her eyes were always scanning corners, mirrors, windows. She jumped at her own reflection once and smashed the motel mirror with a hair dryer. The owner threatened to call the police, but when he saw her, really looked at her, he just turned and walked away without another word. I asked her what she saw. She wouldn't tell me. She just said, "It's still watching." I found another photo yesterday, folded into the inside of my coat pocket. One I hadn't worn since we left the inn. It was us again. But this time, we weren't smiling. We were standing in front of the Whitlow Inn. Our eyes were hollow, black sockets, our mouths stitched shut. The windows behind us were aflame. But we weren't looking at them. We were looking at the camera, at whoever took the picture. And written in the same hand I'd seen before, tight, desperate scrawl, were the words, "You left the door open." I didn't show Leela, not because I wanted to protect her, because I wasn't sure she didn't already know. We tried to drive west, far from the forest, far from the inn, maybe to the ocean. Someplace where salt could bleach away the stains we carried. But every route we took, every back road and detour, somehow it all bent in strange ways. Signs repeated. Gas stations looked identical. Towns seemed too quiet, as if their residents had all left the day before. And the knocking followed, no matter where we stopped. On the 5th night I broke. I woke up in the middle of the night to find Leela standing in front of a motel mirror again, her reflection not matching her movements. She was still, but the mirror image raised its hand and pressed its palm to the glass. Smiling, that same smile, I snapped, grabbed her arm and yanked her away. "Stop looking," I said. "Stop feeding it." She stared at me, no tears, no fear, just sadness, low and quiet. "You think I don't know it's too late? What are you talking about?" I whispered. She touched her chest, fingers curling into the fabric of her shirt. "It's inside," she said. "It never left. I never made it out, not really. You did. I pulled you out. You pulled something out." Her voice cracked on that last word, and for a moment, I wanted to deny it. To tell her she was wrong, that she was whole, safe human. But my silence answered for me. I'd known it too, since room 7, since the mirror cracked, since she smiled and something behind her eyes watched me watching her. The 6th night, the dream came. Except it wasn't a dream. It was the room. Room 7, whole again, no cracks, no mirror, just the chair and the figure tied to it. But this time, it wasn't Leela. It was me. And across from me stood the innkeeper, no longer grinning. His face was peeled back to something ancient, something wrong. Bone showing through, mouth too wide, eyes like burning holes. "You don't understand," he said. "You never left." I woke up screaming, blood under my fingernails. Fingernails that weren't mine. Leela vanished the next morning, not like before. There was no mirror, no blackout, no monstrous vines dragging her away. She was just gone. The bathroom door open, her things still on the counter, her coffee still warm, and next to the cup, another photo. Her, alone this time, standing inside room 7, hands wide, and on the back, just one line, "You broke the rule. Only one returns." It's been 3 days. I haven't left this motel. I haven't eaten. I barely sleep. I listen, constantly, for the knock. I've looked at every photo we ever took together, and something strange is happening to them. In each one, her face is slowly changing, blurring, smearing like a wet painting. In the last one, the one I keep beside the bed, she has no face at all, just skin, smooth, blank, like nothing was ever there, like she never existed. So now you understand why I'm writing this down, because I have to remember. Because this place, this thing, it feeds on forgetting. It rewrites you slowly, erases names, voices, faces, and then it fills the space with something else, something hollow. I can feel it now, gnawing at the edge of my thoughts, waiting, watching, knocking. And I know eventually I'll answer. Because the door, the one we thought we closed, it was never really a door. It was a mouth. And we've already been swallowed. The night she vanished the second time, I kept hearing the knock. Always 7 times. Always from a different place. Closet. Sink. Once from the ceiling. But the most haunting thing wasn't the sound. It was the stillness that followed. That pregnant pause after the 7th knock. Like something was waiting on the other side of a wall. You couldn't see, hoping you'd come closer. Hoping you'd knock back. I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I watched the photo. The one with Leela's face wiped clean. I don't mean blurred like a smudge on a lens. I mean gone. A smooth patch of skin where her features used to be, like a mask stretched too tight. Her hands still hung at her sides. Her body still faced the camera, but there was no recognition. No trace of her left. I tried to scream, but the sound got stuck halfway up my throat, like something didn't want me to name her anymore. Like even saying her name might give me away. That's when I realized something deeper. The longer I stayed out here, away from the inn, the more my memory of her soured, not faded, twisted. I could still remember her eyes, but they weren't soft anymore. They glared. I remembered her laugh, but it echoed now, warped like a recording dragged through water. It was like whatever followed us out was reshaping my memories from the inside, bending her image into something cruel, so I'd stop looking, so I'd forget. That's when I knew what I had to do. I had to go back. The town near the inn had changed. When I pulled into the gas station, the same one where the old man had warned us to stay away, I noticed things right away. The station looked like it hadn't seen a soul in years. Dust caked the windows. The lights above the pump flickered dimly, stuttering in the same 7-beat pattern as the motel room. Even the sign was different now. The name of the place had been scratched out. Literally. Like someone took a knife to it, hacked away at the letters until it bled bare. I walked inside anyway. It smelled of rust and something far older, like time itself had rotted on the shelves. Behind the counter was a man I'd never seen before. Or maybe I had. His face was oddly unfinished. His features were there, but they didn't sit right, like someone had tried to copy a human face from memory and got just enough of it wrong to be terrifying. He smiled at me, teeth too square. "Back again?" he asked. "I need to find her." He didn't blink. Just slid something across the counter. A key. Silver, unlabeled. Same as the one that got us out. "Won't find her out here," he said. "She's where she stayed." He tapped the counter with one finger. 7 times. Then turned away. I didn't ask anything else. I didn't say thank you. I just left, key clutched in a sweating fist. The woods felt different this time. No storm. No fog. Just a strange, oppressive quiet. The kind that doesn't belong in any forest. No bugs, no birds, no breeze. Like the whole place was holding its breath. And as I reached the clearing, where the inn had once stood, I saw that it was gone. Level. Burnt down to blackened rubble and ash. For a moment, I believed it. Maybe someone had torched it after we escaped. Maybe it was finally over. Maybe Leela had been taken too far, and the inn had no more use for a mouth without someone left to scream. But then I heard it. 7 knocks. Not from the woods. Not from the ground. From beneath the ashes. I dropped to my knees, hands clawing at the burnt debris. It was instinctual, not rational. Something inside me knew there was more to this place than timber and soot. My fingers bled as I scraped away layers of blackened wood and char, until I hit it. A door. Not a trapdoor, not a hatch. Just a door. Standing upright, free of hinges. Burned around the edges, but untouched at the center. Embedded in the ground like it had grown there, and etched into it, barely visible through the soot, was the same phrase I'd seen before ONLY. Except this time, beneath it, something new had appeared. BUTW my style. I stood dizzy. My hands shook as I touched the key to the door. It didn't have a lock, but the moment the metal grazed the wood, the door opened. not with a creak, with a breath. Warm, damp air rushed up from beneath, like something exhaling after holding it in for too long, and inside, darkness, moving, shifting, whispering. I don't remember climbing down. I only remember the feel of the stone beneath my feet, the smooth walls closing around me, the staircase winding like a corkscrew into something ancient, deeper than any basement should be. And then I was back, not in the inn, not quite. It was an inn between. The hallway stretched ahead, narrow, endless, lined with doors, each one identical, each one labeled Savin. I reached out, tried the first handle, locked, the next, same. But on the seventh door, the knob turned, and I stepped in. It was a mirror of room 7, down to the last detail. The chair, the circle, the pulsing walls, and Leela, or what was left of her. She was curled in the chair, not tied, just sitting, arms around her knees, face buried. She was murmuring something to herself over and over. I stepped closer. She didn't react until I touched her shoulder. Her head snapped up, and her eyes, real, frightened, human. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't look at the mirror." I turned before I could stop myself, and saw it. Not a reflection, a window to every other room 7, and in each one, a different version of her, some tied, some screaming, some grinning wide, one hanging from the ceiling, one staring back at me, finger raised to its lips. "Shh." I staggered back, heart pounding. Leela grabbed my hand. "I can't tell which one is me anymore," she said, tears in her voice. "They keep changing places." I squeezed her hand tighter. "Then we leave together. I don't care what the rule says." She looked up at me, eyes shimmering. "But what if I'm not the right one?" That question broke something in me, because I didn't have the answer. And neither did she. All I had was the memory of who she was. Before the inn, before the mirror, before the smile that didn't belong. But now, with so many layers over her, trauma, whispers, shadows. How could I know? The mirror pulsed again. One of the reflections stepped forward. Another Leela, smiling, waving. This one said, "Take me. I remember more." Another stepped up, sobbing, "Take me? I'm real. I'm scared." A third one laughed and said, "What if none of us are?" I turned away, closed my eyes. "If you're her," I whispered to the one still holding my hand, "You'll remember the coffee shop. The one with the crooked ceiling fan." Silence. Then, "You ordered a hot chocolate with 3 extra shots and said you were going to pretend it was coffee because you were embarrassed." I opened my eyes. Leela was smiling, the right smile, the one that touched her whole face, and I knew. I pulled her to her feet, heart racing. The door behind us began to close. We ran, the hall shifted around us, walls buckling, lights shattering overhead. The whispers turned to screams. Doors banged open. Faces poured from the darkness, each one twisted into some version of her. But we didn't stop. We made it to the stairs. Climbed up, 1 step for every knock 7. At the top, the door was waiting, open. And on the other side, the clearing, the trees, the sky, the world. We collapsed into the grass, breathing, whole, together. The door vanished behind us. No smoke, no sound, just gone. It's been a week. We haven't spoken much about what happened down there. Some things are better left quiet. But last night, I found something in our car, tucked under the seat, a new photo of us in the mirror. But our reflections aren't smiling, they're knocking 7 times, waiting for us to look back. We'd been back for 13 days when the dreams started returning. Not as scattered fragments or distorted echoes, but full scenes. Places I'd never been, people I'd never seen. And always the same question asked by the same voice just before I woke up. "Do you remember the smell of the wallpaper?" I never answered. Leela and I had tried to rebuild some sense of normalcy after escaping the inn. We moved through cities without names, staying in cheap motels, sleeping in shifts. We used cash, changed our appearance, burned every photograph we found with even a hint of that place in the background. But it wasn't enough. Something had followed us. Not in a physical way, not a monster we could photograph or run from. It was subtler than that. A slow shift in the rules of reality, like gravity working a little differently in each room we entered. The clocks in our motel rooms always slowed down after 3:07 a.m. Our reflections lagged behind us. Phones rang with no caller ID and nothing on the other end but soft breathing or worse, whispers we couldn't understand. It was Leela who noticed the first true sign. She was brushing her teeth when she froze mid-motion. I watched her in the mirror, her hand pausing at her mouth, eyes wide. I called her name. She didn't respond. Then, slowly, her reflection raised its other hand and pressed it against the mirror. But Leela didn't move. She just stood there, hand at her lips, staring at the mirror like it was whispering secrets only she could hear. I rushed in and yanked her away. The reflection returned to normal the moment I touched her. She blinked rapidly, confused, trembling. There was something behind my eyes, she whispered. Not inside me. Behind, like it was trying to see through me. The next morning, the photo was back, folded neatly under her pillow. This time it was just me in the image, sitting in the driver's seat of our car, looking straight ahead. But what unsettled me, truly unsettled me, was what was written on the back. Not a sentence, not even a phrase, just a name. Mine. And beneath it, this version doesn't belong. We packed in silence that morning. Leela didn't speak. I didn't ask questions. We drove until the gas tank was nearly empty and the sky had turned that soft, gray color that always seems like it's just about to storm. It was in that silence, on a road that shouldn't have existed, surrounded by trees that leaned too close together, that I saw it again. The inn, not as we'd left it, not ruined, not burned, rebuilt. Standing proudly in the center of a clearing that hadn't been there before. The sign above the door gleamed like it had just been painted Dabalo, Shitloin Waliel Som Embrace. I slammed the brakes. Leela stared at it, breathing fast, eyes full of something beyond fear. You see it too? She asked. I nodded. She turned to me, voice shaking. We didn't close the door. We walked out. That's not the same as closing it. The sky darkened. Thunder rumbled somewhere distant. The woods around us stood still, unnaturally still. I didn't want to go back. Neither did she. But it wasn't a matter of one anymore. It was a matter of belonging. The inside of the inn was exactly as we left it. Every step we took echoed too loudly. The wallpaper had that same faint floral pattern, curling at the corners. The smell, mildew, wet wood, and something else, like forgotten breath. Room 6's door stood open. The bed was made, fresh sheets, fresh flowers on the nightstand, and on the pillow, another photo, this time of Leela, sitting in room 7, smiling again. That same wrong smile. We walked the halls together, but it didn't feel like we were moving. Every turn brought us back to the same stretch of hallway. The same portraits of strangers with their eyes scratched out, the same fire extinguisher with a crack in the glass. Eventually, we passed room 7. It was open. We didn't go in, but as we walked past, we both heard it. A whisper, so soft it was almost breathless, not from the room, from us. It said, they brought the wrong versions. Later that night, we tried to sleep in room 6. But we weren't alone. Not really. The lights flickered. The closet opened by itself, and in the mirror, we saw 2 beds, 2 versions of us, still, pale, watching, not blinking. Leela stood up and smashed the mirror again. The sound echoed too long, too deep, like it reached something underground. We've been here for days now, maybe longer. Time's broken again. We try the front door every morning. It won't open. We burn the photos, they reappear. I've started finding journal pages in my pockets, written in my handwriting, but I don't remember writing them. They say things like, this version remembers too much. They won't let you leave again. The inn isn't haunted, it's hungry. Stay long enough, and it forgets which you is you. Leela's changing again. She talks in her sleep. Different voices. Sometimes she wakes up and doesn't recognize me for the first minute. Sometimes I wake up and I don't feel like me either. And sometimes, just before dawn, I hear footsteps outside our door. Not one pair, several, each taking 7 steps, stopping, then walking away, like they're counting. Waiting. There's a truth I haven't said out loud yet. I think there are many of us. Not just one version of me and one of her. Dozens, maybe more. And the yin, it's sorting through us, keeping the ones it likes, spitting out the rest. But it never forgets. It remembers each one. Every mistake, every choice, every fear. It remembers who we were before we stepped inside. And it waits for the day we forget ourselves, so it can take our place. The wallpaper is peeling again. There's something underneath it. A face, drawn in charcoal. My face, eyes closed, mouth sewn shut, and next to it 7 tally marks. One for each night, one for each knock. We're not escaping this time. I don't think we ever did. This morning, Leela called me by the wrong name. Not once. Not casually. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Daniel," like she'd said it 1,000 times before. I stared at her, heartbeat stuttering. "What did you call me?" I asked. She blinked slowly, confusion thick in her face, and for a moment I saw a crack, just a flicker, like she was trying to remember something that had just slipped from her grasp. "Daniel," she repeated, softer now, almost questioning herself. "Isn't that?" She stopped. Her mouth stayed open, but no sound came out. That's when I realized something wasn't just off. Something had broken. My name's not Daniel. It never has been. The fear that filled me then wasn't the loud kind. It wasn't screaming or panicked breathing. It was a stillness. A quiet thing that settled into my chest like cold water. I didn't correct her. I couldn't. I just walked to the mirror above the dresser. The third one in this cursed room we'd smashed, and the third one that had reappeared the next morning, whole and gleaming. And I looked, but I didn't recognize the face looking back. I mean, it looked like me. Sort of. Eyes the same shape, nose slightly wrong, mouth too wide. A mole that shouldn't be there. It looked like me in the way a mask looks like a person. It had the right parts, the right texture, but it didn't feel like me. The reflection blinked. I didn't. I turned away. The inn is changing again, not all at once, slowly, like a house warping under pressure no one else can feel. The wallpaper's not just curling anymore, it's bubbling. It pulses sometimes when you walk past it. The floorboards creak in the rhythm of footsteps when no one is moving. The windows show different weather in each pane. I stood in front of one and watched snow fall. The one next to it was sunny. The third was just pitch black, with something pressed against the other side of the glass. It was breathing. I could see the fog on the inside. Leela, if it is Leela, doesn't remember how we met. She remembers the first moment, but the details are wrong. The city, the cafe, even the song that was playing. I tried to correct her, gently at first, then forcefully. She got quiet, then scared. "What if you're the wrong one?" she asked. She wasn't accusing me. She was pleading, begging me to tell her I still knew myself. I didn't answer, because I couldn't. Because I had begun to wonder the same thing. Last night, the hallway outside our door stretched longer than it ever had before. We timed it. 57 doors, all identical, no room numbers anymore. Just faded black plaques that were wiped clean. We walked down the hall together, hand in hand. Each door we passed, we heard something. A scream, a lullaby, a woman sobbing in a language we didn't understand, knocking, whispers, laughter. We stopped walking after we heard our own voices behind one of the doors, arguing, then silence, then the sound of tearing flesh. We didn't open it. We just turned around and walked back. But when we reached room 6 again, the door was different. It had a name etched into it now. Not mine. Not hers. Daniel. That night, I dreamed of a version of me I didn't recognize. He stood at the edge of the woods, hands covered in blood, mouth sewn shut. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched. Then, slowly, he raised one hand and pointed behind me. I turned. The inn was there, but it was alive, breathing, pulsing. Its windows blinked like eyes. Its door opened like a mouth, and from within came hundreds of people. All versions of me. Some crying, some screaming. One on fire. They rushed at me. I didn't wake up. I felt myself die, and then I opened my eyes to a new day. Leela hasn't spoken since then. She watches me constantly now, as if waiting for something to show. A twitch, a glitch, a word out of place. She's measuring me. I know she is, and I'm doing the same, because maybe we both know neither of us is the one who walked into the woods. Not fully. Not anymore. This morning, the inn showed us a new room. We didn't find it. It found us. We stepped into the hallway, and there it was. Door wide open, light spilling out. A warmth we hadn't felt since we first arrived. It smelled like home, and on the bed, laid out perfectly, were two small boxes. Inside mine, a ring. Inside hers, a photograph of us. One we never took. One where we looked right, happy. Whole, real. Behind us in the photo, the inn was gone. Nothing but trees. Nothing but peace. Leela picked it up and held it to her chest. For a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Hope. I wanted to tell her to throw it away. That it was a trick. That it was bait. But I didn't. Because a part of me wanted to believe it too. Later that night, I opened the box again. The ring had changed. It wasn't silver anymore. It was bone. Tiny. Carved with 7 notches. And beneath it, another photo. This time, just me. Sitting in room 7, alone. Mouth sewn shut, eyes wide open. Behind me, the other Layla. The one with the wrong smile. Hand on my shoulder. It's becoming harder to tell what's real. The clocks in our room don't work. We can't find an exit. Even the mirror is no longer a reflection. It's a window now, showing us other versions of our room, other versions of ourselves. One of them is dead, one is dancing. One is banging their head against the wall over and over until the glass splinters with blood. Sometimes I look into that mirror and wonder which side I'm on. Leela whispered something in her sleep tonight. I think I died before we left. Then she smiled. The wrong kind, and turned toward me. I'm writing this because I don't know how much longer I'll remember who I am. I think the inn wants me to forget. To erase the real version, so it can replace me. Or maybe it already has. Maybe I woke up wrong. Maybe the real me never made it out. 7 knocks. They're closer now. Not at the door. Under the bed. And I think this time I might answer. The 7th night marked a change. One so small and quiet, I didn't even realize it had happened until the next morning. Nothing exploded. No doors slammed open. No creature screamed through the walls. It was subtler, more patient, and somehow more horrifying. Because when I woke up, I was already standing. Not in bed, not beside it. I was standing in the center of room 6, barefoot on the cold floor, facing the mirror. The reflection stared back and blinked before I did. Leela was still asleep, or pretending to be. She's been doing that a lot lately. Her breathing too even, too practiced, like she's waiting to see what version of me wakes up next. I don't blame her. I'm not sure I trust myself either. It was only after I sat back down, after I pressed my hands against my face and tried to slow the panic clawing at my chest, that I heard it, the knock, but not at the door, under the floorboards. 7 slow, deliberate knocks, then silence, then a whisper, muffled, wet, not from under me, but inside me. Let us up. The floor beneath my feet has always been a dull, groaning mess of warped wood and uneven boards. But now I saw it for what it truly was, a skin. Something stretched thin over whatever pulsed and whispered beneath. I pressed my ear to the ground, felt it, a hum, almost like breathing, not mechanical, organic. There was something living beneath this room, something watching, waiting, and worse, remembering. I tried to shake it off. I paced the room, paced until my soles burned and my head ached. I counted the wallpaper curls, recited names of old friends, tried to anchor myself in things that were real, true, mine. But the moment I stopped moving, the knock returned. 7 again. Always 7. That night, I didn't sleep. Neither did Leela. We lay side by side, eyes open, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. Or escape. Neither of us spoke until just before dawn, when she said, softly, I think I know what it wants. I turned to her. She didn't look at me. It's not trying to scare us anymore, she whispered. It's trying to convince us. I didn't understand. Not fully. She rolled to face me. Her expression was calm, eerily so. What if it's been offering us a way out this whole time? She asked. But only one of us sees it at a time, and only one of us is allowed to remember. I stared at her, the pit in my stomach opening like a wound. That's what the whispers are, she said. It's not talking to both of us. It chooses. And when it chooses, it gives one of us the offer. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say she was wrong. But deep down, I knew she wasn't. Because the night before, when she was asleep, or pretending to be, the whisper had said something else. We can give her back. Just say yes, I hadn't told her. And now I wondered if she'd heard her own offer too. If the inn had whispered to her while I slept. If it had said, we'll fix him. Just let us in. We stayed quiet the next day. Both of us watching each other, out of the corners of our eyes. Both pretending we hadn't been offered something we shouldn't be considering. That's what the inn does. It doesn't take you. It makes you choose. Slowly. Over time. Until it feels like your idea. That's how it gets in. That night, the knocking changed. It was no longer coming from the floor. It was coming from the walls. And it wasn't just 7 knocks. It was 7 sets, a pause, then again, and again. It was counting down. We tried to leave. Packed bags. Headed for the door. Tried the knob. It didn't move. Of course it didn't. But this time, something new happened. A note slid under the door. Not handwritten. Typed. Old paper. Yellowed at the edges. It read a WHEH owning will yo cape. Leela screamed. Not from the note. From the mirror. I turned just in time to see her reflection smiling. But she wasn't. The real Leela was backing away, eyes wide, mouth trembling. The mirror Leela stepped forward, raised her hand, placed it flat against the glass, and suddenly, Lila froze, couldn't move. Her reflection leaned in, lips brushing the inside of the glass like a kiss, then whispered, I'm the one who stays. I shattered the mirror with my fist. Blood ran down my arm in long, ugly ribbons. My knuckles torn open. The glass fell in heavy, glittering drops to the floor like broken teeth. Leela collapsed to her knees, gasping. Sobbing, she looked up at me. Thank you, she whispered. She almost took me. We didn't speak the rest of the night. There was nothing left to say. Because the inn had escalated. It was done waiting. It was done offering. Now it was deciding. And we were running out of time. This morning, another note. Pinned to the inside of the bathroom mirror with a rusted nail. 7 nights, 1 soul, 1 shell, and beneath it choose, or we will. I think I understand now. The inn doesn't want both of us. It never did. One of us is real. The other is something copied, created, shaped from memory, like clay molded by a blind child. But we don't know which one. And the longer we stay, the more that answer blurs. The more both of us start to forget who we were. Or maybe that's the lie. Maybe neither of us is real anymore. Maybe we're both just reflections, trying to remember a life we never had. I found another photo. Taped to the ceiling this time. We're both in it, standing in front of room 7. Smiling. But behind us a third figure. Hard to see. Hidden in the shadow. But unmistakably us, and this one. This one's the only one not smiling. It's staring straight into the camera, mouth closed. Eyes full of something worse than hate. Recognition. It remembers us. And soon, we won't remember anything at all. I didn't sleep on the 7th night. Neither did Leela. We lay there, fully dressed, facing opposite walls like strangers in the same bed. Pretending we weren't counting the minutes between the knocks. Pretending we weren't waiting for the moment the inn would decide which one of us to keep. The room was quiet, suffocating in the way silence gets when it doesn't belong. I could feel the weight of the house pressing down on us from above, like we were in the belly of something massive and cruel, something that had been digesting us slowly. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the first knock came. 7 strikes against the door, soft, rhythmic, inevitable. We didn't move. 7 more followed, then 7 again. 7 sevens. 49 knocks. Then stillness. That's when the light above us flickered, not like a short circuit, but like someone dimming a candle with their breath. A sound followed, not from the hallway, not from the walls, but from inside the room, from inside us. It was a laugh, quiet, familiar, like hearing your own voice on a recording from years ago, warped slightly off key. Leela turned toward me slowly. Her face was pale, eyes wide and wet. "Do you feel that?" she asked, voice shaking. I nodded. My chest felt heavy, like something was sitting on it. My breath didn't come right. There was a vibration in the air, a low-frequency hum I could feel in my bones, like an engine rumbling under the skin of the world. Then the door opened by itself. We didn't move for what felt like hours, but the air was shifting now, pulling us forward like a slow tide. And behind that open door, the hallway had changed. No more identical doors, no more endless looping stretch, just one path. At the end, room 7, its door already open. Waiting, we walked together, barefoot, no words exchanged. The hallway didn't creak anymore. The floor was smooth, polished, new. The walls were lined with portraits, but not strangers this time. Us, over and over. Dozens of versions, some smiling, some screaming. One with my face burned off, one with Leela's mouth gone, one where we stood apart, facing away from each other. Alone. Room 7 loomed at the end of it all. Light spilling out. That familiar warm glow, almost golden, almost comforting. The trick of it. I wanted to stop walking, to grab her hand, to scream that this wasn't real, that we had a choice. But I couldn't. My legs kept moving. My voice stayed buried under whatever pressure the air held. Inside room 7, it looked different again. No chair, no mirror, just a table. Small, wooden, a single candle burning on top, and 2 envelopes, identical, white, unsealed. One had my name, one had hers. We didn't speak. We stepped forward together, picked them up. Inside mine, a single line, typed in that same machine, like font. "This one remembers too much." Inside hers, "This one forgets just enough." We looked at each other. The moment stretched. Something clicked inside the walls. A lock turning in the bones of the building. And then the door behind us closed. There were no windows, no way out. Just the candle. And the feeling. The undeniable sense that we were being watched, judged, measured. I tried to speak. To ask her what she saw, if she remembered. But when I opened my mouth, no sound came out. Neither did hers. Our voices were gone. Not muted, taken. I tried to scream. Nothing. The candle flickered, and then the room shifted. The walls darkened. The ceiling stretched. The floor rippled like water. The room began splitting. Not physically. Between us. I could see her, but the space between us widened without movement. Like we were being pulled into 2 different versions of the same space. I ran for her. So did she. But the more we moved, the farther apart we got. Like the room was deciding. Like it had made up its mind. The floor between us began to open. A mouth. That's the only way to describe it. Teeth, not sharp, but jagged like broken glass, lined the edges. Tongue of black wood, and smoke lapping up like a snake tasting the air. From within came the smell of decay, old paper, and something familiar. Something that smelled like fear made flesh. I reached out for her. Our fingertips touched, and then the mouth closed. I woke in room 6, alone. The mirror was gone. The closet was gone. Even the door was gone. Just 4 smooth walls and a bed. And on the pillow, another envelope, unsealed. Blank. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, only 1 returns. I screamed, and this time, I heard it. My voice had returned. But the scream wasn't alone. It echoed, from behind the walls, from above the ceiling, from beneath the floor, and one voice rose through them all. Leela's, calling my name, not Daniel mine. Real, pained, alive. I beat my fists against the wall, kicked it, screamed, tore at the corners of the room, my hands blood, my voice cracked, the walls didn't budge. Then the knocking started again, this time from inside the room, from the bed. 7 knocks, slow, deep. I turned, and there she was, Leela, sitting upright on the bed, silent, pale, alive, but not breathing, not blinking. A single tear slid down her cheek. I rushed forward, grabbed her shoulders. Her eyes moved, barely, and from her mouth, still shut tight, a whisper escaped like smoke slipping through a crack in a wall. They made me remember what I really am. I froze. Her pupils dilated, then contracted. Something moved beneath her skin, and then she blinked. Not once, but 7 times. Mechanical, deliberate. In rhythm, I stepped back, and she smiled. That wrong smile, not Leela's. Not anymore. Behind me, the wall cracked. A hand reached through, long, thin, fingers too many, clawed. It tapped my shoulder once, twice, then again, 7 times, and whispered, "Your turn." I ran. Not in the way you run from something chasing you with teeth or a weapon. No, this was different. This was running from the knowing, the kind that slips beneath your ribs and whispers, "It's already too late." I backed away from her, Leela, or what was left of her, and hit the wall behind me with a thud, my spine screaming from the impact. But I didn't feel it. All I could do was stare at the thing in her skin, that imitation that sat so calmly on the edge of the bed, blinking 7 times in perfect rhythm. Every flicker of her eyes was a countdown. Every breath she didn't take was a signal she wasn't meant to breathe. Not anymore. She tilted her head, not in confusion, in familiarity, like she remembered this moment, like we'd done this before, like she'd watched me break before, and it was time for the scene to repeat. "You're still holding on to the wrong memory," she said. Her voice was flat, not robotic, not distorted, just empty. I didn't answer, couldn't. My throat was dry, my pulse deafening in my ears. "I told you," she continued, rising to her feet without bending her knees, smooth and eerie. "They made me remember what I really am." She stepped forward. The floor didn't creak, didn't react, as if it didn't register her as something heavy enough to make a sound. I kept moving backward until I hit the corner. Nowhere left to run. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered, and I think, maybe, she meant it. The wall behind me shifted, not visibly, but I felt it. It was like the room inhaled, like the plaster, the wood, the paint, the bones of this place, all sucked in at once, waiting for my decision. And then the wall behind her eyes opened. I don't mean a door, I mean I saw through her, saw into her. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, literally. A room blinked open in her pupils, a small gray space, windowless, with peeling walls and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, swaying gently though no air moved. And in that room, crouched in the corner like a forgotten thing, was another version of her. The real one. She was shaking, barefoot, wrapped in the same hoodie she wore the night we first came here. Her hair was matted, her eyes bloodshot. She was whispering something over and over again. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew the tone. Desperate, pleading. She saw me, through her own eyes, and mouthed, "I'm still here." The thing wearing her blinked. The room vanished. Just her face again, smiling. "You almost reached her," it said. Almost. My vision swam. I dropped to my knees, hands in my hair, trying to shut it out, shut it all out. But the room pulsed with a rhythm I now recognized. The heartbeat of something ancient and cruel. The inn itself. The inn was alive, and it was speaking through her. Then, all at once, it stopped. No sound. No breath. No movement. She crumpled to the floor like a marionette cut from its strings. I didn't move. I didn't trust it. I watched. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Stillness. Then footsteps. Not hers. Not mine. Behind me. I turned, slow, ice in my spine. The wall had split open. A new hallway stood beyond it. No doors, just mirrors lining both sides. dozens, maybe hundreds. Each one showed a version of me, some with Leela, some alone. One with blood on my hands. One with her blood on my hands. They watched me like animals in cages, waiting to see what I'd do next. I stepped through. What else could I do? Behind me, the wall sealed shut. Leela, whatever had been wearing her, was gone. Ahead of me, the hallway pulsed. I passed the mirrors one by one. Each reflection moved slightly out of sync, just barely enough to feel wrong. Some smiled when I didn't. Others frowned. One raised its hand and pressed its palm against the glass. It had no mouth, just empty skin, and carved across its chest, CHOIC. At the end of the hall, another room, empty, except for a chair, the same chair. The one from the original room 7, carved with those looping symbols, soaked in something darker than varnish. But this time, there was a table next to it. On the table, a book, not bound in leather, bound in skin. I don't want to describe it. I don't want to think about how it felt when I touched it. But I did. I had to. The cover bore no title, just an indentation where a face once pressed against it. I opened it. Inside were pages and pages of me. Drawings, notes, scribbled diagrams of my memories, events of my life recorded in third person, dates, times, emotions, even the things I thought I'd forgotten. Even things I know I never told anyone. But the further I flipped, the less accurate the memories became. My mother's voice changed. My first kiss was someone else. My face in the drawings wrong, and on the final page, a blank line beneath a sentence. Choose the memory you wish to keep. All others will be discarded. I closed the book. Hard, because I understood now. The inn didn't steal you all at once. It asked you what you were willing to let go of. Piece by piece, until nothing true remained, until you were hollow enough to wear. That's what happened to her. That's what it wanted from me. I heard a sound behind me. Turned. She was there again, the real one. The one from behind the eyes, dirty, exhausted, alive. She stumbled forward. Collapsed. I caught her, held her. She was cold, but real. Her heartbeat thudded against mine. I found the way out, she whispered. But it cost something. I pulled back. What? Her eyes filled with tears. You have to forget me. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to argue that there had to be another way. That I'd held onto every piece of her, every word, every laugh, every flaw, for this. To find her. To save her. How could the price be forgetting what I fought so hard to remember? She smiled. Her real smile. That small, tired one she gave when she was trying not to cry. Then stay, she said. But if you do, you won't be you for long. She reached into her hoodie, pulled out a lighter, and lit the book. It went up fast, like it was soaked in something. The flames danced in silence. The mirrors cracked one by one. And with each shatter, I felt something leave me. A weight I didn't know I carried. The inn screamed. Not through sound, through everything. The walls shuddered. The lights exploded. The floor rippled like liquid. She grabbed my hand. Ran. We didn't look back. I woke up in a car. Driver's seat. Leela beside me. Sun rising. Trees passing. My hands on the wheel. Music playing. But I couldn't remember the song. I looked at her. She was watching the trees. Smiling. I opened my mouth to speak, but I couldn't remember what to say. Her name sat on the edge of my tongue. Just out of reach. I tried to think. To grasp it. But something soft pressed against my thoughts, erasing it like fog across a mirror. She turned to me. Still smiling. It's okay, she said. You came back. I smiled too, not because I understood, not because I remembered, but because I believed her. Even though deep down, I knew. I left something behind, and it's still knocking. I thought we escaped. Thought the burning of the book, the shattering mirrors, the screaming inn swallowing itself in a collapse of memory and shadow. That all of it had been enough. That whatever had nested in the folds of our names had finally let us go. But as the car rolled down that nameless stretch of highway, as the orange light of dawn lit up Leela's profile and the wind dragged the past away in silence, something began to sink in. something slow, cold. I didn't recognize the road. I didn't recognize the trees. I didn't recognize the sky. The sun was in the wrong place. Not metaphorically. Physically. It rose from the west. I kept driving. Because what else do you do when the world refuses to obey? I clenched the wheel and focused on the lines dividing the road. Leela hadn't spoken since she told me, "You came back." Her voice had been soft, sure, final, as though it sealed something shut behind us. But the longer we drove, the more I noticed it, the way the world curved. Not like the earth. Not like physics. It was subtler. Like we were circling something vast in the center of our path, something invisible, something waiting. We weren't heading forward. We were orbiting. The first real sign came when I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw another car behind us, identical to ours, same model, same scratches on the fender, same busted left taillight. I squinted. There were two people inside, both staring forward. The driver's hand was on the wheel, knuckles pale from the grip. The passenger had her face turned toward the window. And for a fleeting, ice-sharp second, I knew it was us. I blinked, hard, checked again. The mirror was empty, nothing behind us. I didn't say anything to Leela. I wasn't ready to know how she'd react. Or worse, if she'd seen it too and wasn't saying anything either. Instead, I muttered, "Gas," and took the next exit. We pulled into a station that looked like it had been built from memory. The pumps were old, analog, the kind that clicked with every gallon. A bell above the shop door chimed when I walked in, and the man behind the counter didn't look up from his newspaper. That's when I noticed the paper had no headlines, just 7 words repeated in bold, black font across the front page: "Lo, you left some and T and B, C and D," again and again, line after line. I stepped back. The man turned the page, completely unfazed. The second page read "It full aludio ooh." When I got back to the car, Leela was standing outside it, staring down the road. "What is it?" I asked. She didn't turn. "There's someone walking," she said. I followed her gaze. Far down the highway, barely a silhouette on the horizon, a figure moved toward us. Slow, purposeful, limping slightly. Even from that distance, I knew. The shape was familiar. Not in the way people are familiar, but in the way you recognize a dream as it slips away, the way the smell of childhood lingers in old wood in summer heat. The figure wasn't just someone, it was something. And it knew us. We drove, didn't look back, didn't speak. But the roads didn't change. Same trees, same curves, same birds frozen in midair, like puppets strung from an invisible sky. Eventually, we pulled into a motel. Not because we were tired, but because the car refused to go any farther. The engine stopped, just shut down. No noise, no smoke, no warning. The motel was already expecting us. Room 7, again. Inside was one bed, one chair, and a mirror covered by a cloth that shivered even though no wind touched it. Leela walked to the chair and sat, folding her hands in her lap. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked. I didn't know how to answer. Because even as I opened my mouth, the question turned in my head like a coin. Which part? The part where we escaped? The part where we lost ourselves? The part where the thing we left behind grew tired of waiting? I took the cloth off the mirror. It didn't show our reflection. It showed the hallway of the inn. Still intact. Still alive. Room 7's door wide open. And standing just inside, not moving, not blinking, was the other me. His eyes locked onto mine through the glass. And then, he smiled. No teeth. Just a thin, knowing curve of lips. He raised his hand, held up 7 fingers, then closed one. 6 left. I backed away, heart pounding. Leela stood beside me now. Watching, she whispered, "It knows we're running." I shook my head. "We're not running. We're circling." She turned to me, expression suddenly flat. "What if we're the shadows now?" she asked. I stared. She didn't blink. Not once. My stomach dropped. Not in fear. In recognition. Because I remembered something. A version of her blinked 7 times before she changed. I looked into her eyes. Watched. Waited, counted. 1 blink, 2, 3, 5, 6. And then nothing. She stopped at 6. I stepped back. Leela, I said, say my name. She tilted her head, smile faltering. Of course I can, she said. Why wouldn't I? But she didn't say it. Not yet. She waited. Just a second too long. Just enough for the doubt to become certainty. There was a knock at the door. 7 times. Of course. When I turned, the mirror was cracked again. Only this time the crack spelled something. A sentence, written in sharp, jagged fractures across the glass. Tichi rail ones and EVR left T. And Leela, this Leela, laughed. Softly, not mockingly, but like she knew. And like I finally did, too. She wasn't her. And maybe I wasn't me? Not anymore. Not after the choices we made. Not after the versions we shed like dead skin. Somewhere, far behind the sky, the inn still stood. Still fed. Still waited. And the shape walking toward us. It never stopped. It never would. Because we didn't leave it behind. We carried it. Inside us. On our faces. In the echoes of our own voices. We are the thing that remembers. We are the knock. By the 13th day, I had stopped checking reflections. I knew better. Glass no longer told the truth. It hadn't for a long time. Sometimes it moved on its own, lagging just a second behind, like it needed to catch up. Other times it anticipated me, raising a hand before I did, turning its head before mine. What haunted me most, though, wasn't the delay or the mimicry. It was the certainty. My reflection always looked like it knew something I didn't. Something final. Something I would only understand the moment I no longer needed to. I think that's what the inn taught me most. Not fear. Not loss. Doubt. Doubt in what I remembered. In what I was. In who I had always believed myself to be. We were still in the motel. The one that appeared when the car died. The one with room 7 waiting like it never stopped. I hadn't tried to leave. There wasn't any point. The road would still curve, the gas tank would still run dry, and the shape would still walk toward us, always too far to see clearly, always just close enough to feel. I tried asking Leela questions. Easy ones at first. Details about the first day we met. The restaurant where we had our first fight. Her old roommate's name. I wasn't looking for proof, not really. I was looking for rhythm. Familiarity. The way people speak when they don't need to think. She always hesitated, only for a moment. But it was enough. And then she'd laugh. Smile. Place her hand on mine. You don't trust me, she'd say. I didn't respond. Because what do you say to that when it might be true? That night, I woke up alone. The room was cold. The kind of cold that feels intentional, like it's not from broken heating, but from something watching. There was a note on the pillow, my name. Just that. No message. No threat. Just my name, written in handwriting that looked like mine, but wasn't. The letters were too straight. Too clean. I folded it, put it in my pocket, and didn't tell her. Because I had a growing suspicion that she already knew. The next time I looked in the mirror, it wasn't me staring back. It looked like me. Same jawline, same scar on my chin, same tired eyes. But it wasn't tired the way I was tired. It was empty, wiped clean. The kind of look someone gives you when they've already decided what you are. And then it spoke. From inside the glass. I'm almost done with your part, it said. Just need the last memory. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. What memory? I asked. It tilted its head. The one you never told anyone. Not even her. The one you buried. My throat closed. Because I knew what it meant. It was the night before the first time we ever visited the Whitlow Inn. Leela was asleep. I'd gotten up, restless. Wired with some kind of panic I didn't understand. I remember stepping out onto the fire escape, lighting a cigarette I didn't finish. I stared out at the street below, watching the wind carry trash like forgotten thoughts. And I'd whispered something. Something I'd never said out loud before or since. I wish I had met her later. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even bitter. It was just honest. A part of me had always wondered if I was enough for her. If I'd met her when I was still patching holes in myself. Not whole, not solid, not ready. It was selfish, but real. And now the thing in the mirror wanted it. The truth. The final piece of me I'd kept hidden, even from her. I backed away. The reflection didn't follow, it just waited. And as I turned, I caught sight of her, Leela, standing in the doorway, watching me. She didn't speak, didn't ask what I saw, she just stared, and then blinked. 7 times. Deliberate, one after another. That night, she didn't lie in bed beside me. She stood in the corner of the room, unmoving, watching. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not with that version of her standing so still. Not with that name in my pocket. Not with the weight of that whispered wish crawling up from the cracks of memory. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no door opening, just gone, like she'd never been there. The bed was cold, the closet empty. But the mirror was full. Inside, the room was identical. But instead of her, it was me standing in the corner, and me lying in bed, and me looking into the mirror. Dozens of me, layered like pages in a book pressed too tightly. Each one watching, each one waiting, each one holding a single item. A note, the same as mine, folded, simple. Their names written across the paper. None of them were mine. The door opened. Without a sound, room 7 waited again. But this time, I knew. I wasn't meant to enter it. Not yet. I was meant to remember. To give up that final truth. And in return, what? Freedom? Forgiveness? Leela? Or just another version of me, built from lies, moving into my place while I stayed behind? I didn't enter. Not then. Instead, I opened the note in my pocket. Read my name over and over. Tried to believe it. Tried to feel it. But it was like saying someone else's name out loud, hoping it would echo the way yours used to. It didn't. I went back to the mirror, faced the thing wearing my face, and said, I remember. It smiled. Not cruelly, but like a butcher setting down the knife. And then everything went dark. Not lights out. Not unconsciousness. Dark, and like the world had blinked. And when the lights returned, I was somewhere else. I was home. Our real home. Leela was in the kitchen, making coffee. Smiling. She turned to me like nothing had happened, like the inn never existed, like the woods never whispered, like the knock never came. Morning, she said. I tried to answer. I really did. But I couldn't, because the moment I opened my mouth, she blinked 7 times and said, You should have chosen a better memory. She moved like she belonged there, graceful, routine, perfect in every detail. The way she measured the coffee grounds with the back of a butter knife. The way she tapped her fingers against the counter as it brewed, a soft rhythm like distant rain. All of it matched the memory exactly, beat for beat, except for one thing: it was too quiet. There was no sound from outside, no wind, no cars, no birds. Just her movements and the faint hiss of steam. The world had been muted, like the volume was turned down on everything but her. That was the first sign. The second came when I looked at the calendar on the fridge. It was blank. No month, no year. Just a sheet of paper with 7 black squares where the dates should have been. 7. Always 7. Morning. She repeated, looking up at me. Her smile didn't fade. It held there, stretched just a breath too long. When I didn't respond, she tilted her head, watching me like a study. You okay? She asked. I wanted to scream, because she wasn't asking out of concern. She was waiting for the right response, the expected one. This wasn't Leela. This was the memory of Leela, a loop, one I had been dropped into and told to accept. I sat down at the table without answering. My hands trembled slightly, and I clenched them into fists under the table to stop them from shaking. She moved around the kitchen, pouring coffee, humming again, but the tune kept restarting. Every few seconds, she'd hum the same 3 notes, then pause, then start again. I didn't remember Leela doing that, because she never did. She used to hum full songs, off-key, making up lyrics halfway through when she forgot the real ones. This version had no room for mistakes. It had no room for her. When she handed me the mug, her fingers brushed mine. They were warm, but dry. Too dry. Like touching paper that had been left out in the sun too long. Her skin cracked slightly at the knuckles. I looked up at her, and for just a second, I saw something behind her eyes. Not sadness, not malice, stillness. As if there was nothing inside waiting to get out. Just an empty corridor stretching endlessly behind her smile. "You never told me what you remembered," she said, taking a seat across from me. Her tone was playful, but her eyes were sharp, fixed, hungry. "I did," I said quietly. I told him. Her expression didn't change. "Who's him?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure anymore. The mirror version of me. The voice inside the inn itself. Maybe they were all the same. Maybe the moment I admitted what I'd whispered on that fire escape. Admitted that I wished I'd met her later, when I was less broken, more worthy. Maybe that was the final lock turned. Maybe that was the price to be paid. "I missed you," she said suddenly, and her voice cracked on that last word, just slightly. Enough to make me flinch, because it sounded real, painfully real, the kind of rawness the inn never showed. I looked at her again, searching. For what? I don't know. A sign? A mistake? Proof that there was still something of the real Leela in there. Or maybe I was searching for forgiveness, for saying the thing I'd never meant to say out loud. But her face had returned to calm, serene, as if the slip had never happened. She sipped her coffee. I stood, walked to the window. Outside, the world stretched flat. No cars, no buildings, no sky, just a field of tall grass, endless and swaying even though there was no wind. The field bent in slow, rhythmic waves, 7 pulses, then still, then again. Each wave in sync with the beat of something ancient beneath it. I pressed my hand to the glass. It was warm, and then I heard it, a faint sound beneath the humming, beneath the silence, not outside, not in the house, inside me, a voice, a child's voice, repeating the same question over and over. "Do you remember who she was before you forgot her?" I turned. The room was empty. She was gone. The chair scraped softly behind me. She was seated again somehow. Same place. Same mug. Same smile. "Did you see it?" she asked. "What?" She raised her eyebrows. "The world without you." My mouth went dry. She sipped. "You thought this was your escape," she said. "But it's not. It's your ending." The kitchen door opened behind her. No handle. No hinges. Just open like a mouth parting. Inside the hallway. Long. Too long. Mirrors on either side again. Same hallway as before. Same test. She stood. "Walk toward it. I'm going," she said. "They're calling." I moved to follow. She turned. "Not yet." And with that, she vanished into the dark. I sat there for what felt like hours, or seconds. Time had no meaning here. Only memory did. I got up eventually. Looked around the house again. Every photo on the wall was blank. Every drawer empty. The bookshelf held one book, bound in black, unmarked. When I opened it, I found pages from my own life. Moments I thought no one had seen. My first lie. My worst mistake. The moment I almost left her. The day I didn't. Then, the last page, "You left something behind. You can't leave until it finds you." I heard the knock, 7 times. This time, from inside the walls. Then a whisper, "Are you ready to be remembered?" I turned toward the sound, and the wall split, revealing room 7, again, but this time it was upside down, floor on the ceiling. Chair bolted to nothing, light hanging upward, and in the center, a figure in my clothes sitting. Tied, eyes open, watching me with fear, not rage, not hunger, fear. It was me, but not the version I had become, the version I used to be. And I realized the inn didn't want me to forget. It wanted to replace me, and it had already started. There was only one thing left to do. I stepped inside, into the inverted room 7, and whispered back, "I remember." The lights went out, not just in the room, in everything, and something whispered in my own voice then, "Let's see who deserves to stay." When the light came back, it wasn't light. It was presence. A sensation that poured over me like syrup, slow, thick, suffocating. I opened my eyes and found no difference between open and shut. The room remained black. Not the absence of color, but the presence of something too dense to see through. Something alive. I couldn't see the walls, couldn't feel the floor, only knew I was still standing because I hadn't yet fallen. Then a voice, low, familiar. My name is, it trailed off, as if it forgot, or as if it was waiting for me to finish it. I swallowed. You're not me. A pause. Then a soft chuckle. Not yet. The blackness peeled back, not slowly, violently, like paper torn off skin. The upside-down room spun into place, gravity slamming into me sideways until the chair hit the floor and everything snapped back into alignment. I staggered, catching myself against the wall. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Cold sweat soaked my back, and there he was, me, sitting in the chair, still tied, still watching, but no longer afraid. He smiled. The kind of smile I used to wear before I learned how badly the world could rot around you. He looked fresh, untouched. Unscarred, you left me behind, he said, tilting his head. But I remembered. I approached slowly. You're not real. He looked up. That's what you always say to the parts you don't like. The ropes around him weren't ropes. They pulsed, like veins, wrapped tight across his wrists and ankles, moving with every heartbeat. I wanted to cut them. I wanted to grab this version of myself, shake him, ask what the hell he meant, what he was. But I already knew. This was the version of me the inn saved. The one that stayed when I chose to run. The one that whispered yes when I whispered no. The inn never lets anything go. It copies. Then it waits for you to come back and finish the exchange. Why now? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he looked behind me, and that's when I felt it. Another presence. Stepping into the room like a memory you buried too deep. I turned, and Leela walked in. Not the one I'd escaped with. The original. Hair tangled. Eyes bloodshot. A hospital bracelet still around her wrist. Barefoot. She looked at me like someone waking from a long sleep. Confused. Hollow. Where am I? She whispered. I couldn't speak. My throat was closing again. Because this was the version I remembered. The one I loved. The one the inn had buried. The tied version of me stood. The ropes fell away without a sound. He stepped to her. Held out his hand. And she took it. Like it was always meant to be. Like I had never been real to begin with. No, I said. My voice cracked. I found her. I brought her back. The other me turned to face me, and his voice changed. Deeper. Older. And mine. Maybe you did, he said. But you didn't keep her. The walls began to close in. Not physically. Memories closing like shutters. Our apartment. Our road trips. The way she once whispered my name in the dark. All of it folding, collapsing, burning behind my eyes. I fell to my knees. Begged. Please. Don't take her. But Leela wasn't watching me. She was watching him. Eyes wide with something between wonder and recognition. And then, finally, sadness. I waited, she said. You never came. I did, I choked out. I never stopped looking. She reached for me, and stopped, because her wrist was tethered to him. A new vine. Black, laced in her skin. You don't get to remember both of us, the other me said. You chose your memory. Now I had to make another choice. A door appeared behind him.
Tall, white, clean.
Etched in gold letters EXXITIVIOLE. It glowed. Real. Inviting. But Leela's vine didn't lead through it. It pulled down. Toward the floor. Toward room 7. Toward the inn. The other me turned, guiding her toward the door. I reached out. Stop. Take me instead. He paused. Smiled gently. And said, You already gave yourself up the day you wished you'd met her later. That memory burned through me again. Like punishment. Like confession. He pulled the door open. Light spilled in. He and Leela stepped through. And vanished. I screamed. Not in rage. In loss. The kind of loss that echoes in places you didn't know had names. The room was empty now. Just me. Again, always just me. And in the corner, something began to grow. A new chair. A new mirror. And another version of me, eyes closed. Waiting. The inn doesn't want us to leave. It wants to see how many versions it can make before we forget what we were. It wants to see how close it can bring you to yourself before you break. I sit now, waiting. The door behind me glows, clean, gold. Exit still offered, but I don't move. Because if I walk through it, I'm not sure who will be on the other side, and I'm not sure I deserve to find out. I didn't open the door. Not yet. I sat across from it, knees pulled to my chest like a child hiding from something they know is already in the room. The white glow bleeding from the cracks around its frame cast long, trembling shadows that reached for me, but never quite touched. I think they were waiting for a decision, a surrender, a final breath. That's what the inn does. It waits, always patient, because it already knows. It knows what you'll choose. It just wants you to watch yourself choose it. The door wasn't glowing anymore. It was watching. I stood up eventually, legs numb, breath shallow. I stepped closer to the door, not to leave, but to listen. I pressed my ear to the wood, expecting silence. Instead, I heard laughter, my voice, Leela's, twisting together, looped into a perfect moment. One I barely remembered anymore. It sounded like that summer when we thought we'd outrun everything. Before the cracks in the world widened, before she blinked 7 times and forgot who she was. The laughter was real, too real, crisp, perfect, a memory weaponized against me. I knocked. 7 times. It echoed. Not from the door, from the walls behind me. And I knew then, I wasn't the one doing the knocking. The door didn't open. Instead, it split. A single crack down the center, just wide enough to glimpse through. But I didn't see a hallway, or light, or the world outside. I saw myself again. But not the version I met before. This one looked older, tired, pale. Like someone who had stopped trying to pretend they weren't broken. He sat in a chair beside a hospital bed. Leela was in it. Thin, eyes sunken, machines breathing for her hand limp in his. He was talking to her. But she wasn't listening, because she was already gone, and the machines were just pretending for him. I pulled back from the door, gasping. It didn't close. It stayed open, that crack, that sliver of grief. A window into a memory that hadn't happened yet, or had, and I'd just forgotten. The inn doesn't deal in chronology. It deals in truth. And the truth was this: I'd lost her before I ever found her. A sound behind me. A whisper. You asked for the memory. You never said it had to be good. I turned. There was no one there, just another chair, and in it, a child, a boy, maybe 10. He looked like me, but not just in the face, in the posture. The way his shoulders slumped. The way he stared at the floor like he expected it to swallow him. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. I remembered that version of me. The one who first learned to pretend. The one who said he was fine when his mother asked about the bruises. The one who lied so well that, years later, Lila didn't even notice when I started lying to her too. He raised his head. His eyes were gone, just black sockets, and inside them, room 7. Every version of me was tied to it, every fragment, every lie, every silence. All of them led back to that door. The child in the chair opened his mouth. From it came a phrase in my father's voice. You never left the room. You just kept repainting it. I screamed, punched the wall. Felt nothing. The room pulsed once, alive, amused, and the light behind the door turned red. No longer inviting. Now warning, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Not in the way I had been. Not of ghosts or doubles or even the dark. I was afraid of the choice. Because I was starting to understand. There was no leaving without trading. The door didn't open for escape. It opened for exchange. I turned my back on it, walked to the mirror, touched the glass. It didn't ripple this time, didn't crack. Instead, it opened, not like a door, more like a mouth. And it spoke. You may offer one thing, one name, one truth, one self. I knew what it wanted, and I knew what it would give in return. Freedom. But only for one. I said her name. Not the one I whispered when I missed her. The real one. The one only she and I used when we were alone. A stupid nickname from the first night we met, born from too many drinks and a terrible joke. I whispered it into the mirror, and it smiled. The glass peeled away. Behind it the woods. Early morning. Gray sky. The car, parked, untouched. The door wide open. And her, standing there. Not walking away. Not blinking. Just waiting. I stepped forward, half of me still inside the room, the other already tasting air. But before I could move fully through, I heard the child again. Soft, final. If you leave, someone else stays. I turned. The boy still sat there, alone, staring. And I understood. He would be the one traded, the one trapped, because he was still me. Because I was never meant to leave whole. I knelt beside him, took his hand. It was cold, familiar. And I said, "You don't have to hold this anymore." His face broke. Tears, sudden and full, ran down hollow cheeks. He opened his mouth, and instead of my father's voice, I heard my own. "Then who will?" I didn't answer. I stood, turned, and walked through the mirror. The air outside hit like a first breath. She looked up at me, smiled. "For real?" "I thought you wouldn't come back," she said. "I didn't," I replied, and we got in the car. Started the engine. Drove. The trees passed like memories that no longer wanted to be remembered. And for a moment, I believed we were free. Until the radio crackled, and a voice, mine, said room 7 is ready for the next guest. We drove for what felt like hours, maybe longer. Neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't awkward or tense. It was thick, as if the car was sealed shut in it, a vacuum of everything we couldn't say. The road stretched forward in a straight line, unbending, unchanging. Forest on both sides, no signs. No exits. Just asphalt and trees, and the growing sense that we were moving without going anywhere. I glanced at her, at Leela, gripping the steering wheel. Eyes locked forward. She hadn't looked at me since we pulled onto this road. I wondered if she even knew I was still in the car. I turned the radio off, or tried to. The knob turned, clicked, but the static kept pouring out. It was low at first, background noise. Then came the whisper. Garbled, deep, familiar. "You left him behind." I pressed the power button again harder. Nothing. Leela finally spoke, softly, like she was answering a question I hadn't asked. I heard it too. I looked at her. She kept her eyes on the road. Her voice was calm, detached, like she was describing the weather. "It's not the radio. It's the car. We passed a sign. Black metal. No letters. Just a number 7. We hadn't passed anything for miles, and now suddenly, there it was. Standing tall like a warning or a marker. I turned in my seat to get a better look as we passed it, but when I looked out the rear window, there was nothing. No sign. No road. No forest. Just black. I turned back around, heart pounding. "We're not out," I said. Leela didn't respond. The silence sat heavier now. Not between us. Inside us. That static on the radio. It had stopped. But something else replaced it. Breathing. Slow. Rhythmic. Not synced with either of us. Not human. Just behind the dashboard, inside the walls of the car, listening, I reached for her hand, and she pulled away. Not sharply. Just enough to say not yet. The road began to narrow. Not visually. Not like it tapered. But the car began to press in. The ceiling dipped lower. The dashboard crept closer. The side mirrors bent inward, as if recoiling from something up ahead. I looked out the windshield and finally saw it, a structure, in the middle of the road. Dark, wooden, familiar, the inn, but it was wrong, twisted, its walls pulsed like lungs. Its roof sagged and breathed and moaned with each gust of wind. And carved above the entrance, as though it had always been there, was a single word: welcome. I slammed my foot on the brake. The car skidded. Tires screamed. The engine died. Silence. The kind that smiles. We sat there for a moment, frozen. Then Leela opened her door. I grabbed her arm. "We just got out. We can't go back in." She looked at me. Not angry. Not scared. Just tired. "We never left," she said, and stepped out. The moment she touched the ground, the car behind her dissolved. Not exploded. Not faded. It peeled. Like paper burning in reverse. First the metal, then the fabric, then the wheels, unraveling into strings of dark light that coiled into the dirt. I got out quickly, heart racing, unsure if my own body would begin to shred next. The inn stood ahead, breathing, no lights on, no sound, just waiting. Always waiting. I followed her to the porch. The boards groaned underfoot like they recognized us. Room 7's door was already open. Not just open, lit. Inside, the chair sat in the center again, but there were two now, side by side, facing a mirror the size of a wall. The surface wasn't reflective anymore. It showed a video, footage of us sleeping, in our apartment, recently, from angles that should have been impossible. I stepped back. No. But Leela moved toward it. Her voice cracked. What did we bring back with us? Because the truth hit then. We'd left the inn. But something had followed. Something that recorded. Something that watched. Not from the outside. From inside us. The mirror rippled. And our reflections stepped forward. Not mirroring us. Mimicking. Improvising. Moving seconds ahead, guessing what we'd do, smiling when they got it right. Our twins. More confident. More precise. They looked like how we imagined we should have been. I backed away. My double kept moving forward. Until it stepped out of the mirror, into the room. Into the same air as me. It stood across from me. Then said my voice in a way I'd never said it. You've had your turn. Leela's twin stepped out next. Put a hand on her shoulder. Leela flinched, frozen. I moved to protect her. But her double whispered something in her ear. Leela crumpled, crying. Not from fear, from recognition. The doubles stood side by side now. Not smiling, not threatening, just waiting, because they knew. They didn't have to fight us. They just had to wait us out. Because sooner or later, we'd question our own reality enough to hand it over. I looked at her. And she looked back. Silent understanding. Either we stay and become what we left behind, or we give it to them. But then I asked the one question I never had: who made the inn? And my double, my perfect, polished, confident reflection, hesitated. That was enough. I grabbed the chair, swung it into the mirror. Glass exploded, but didn't cut. It screamed. The entire room screamed. The doubles howled, melting back into light. The inn shuddered, flickered. The boards beneath us snapped. I grabbed her hand. For real. And this time, she didn't pull away. Together, we ran. Out the door. Through the breathing porch. Back into the trees. But there were no trees. Just a hallway. Of course, the inn's last trick. 7 doors. Each identical, each numbered. Only one was real. And we had to pick before the place stitched itself shut again. Her hand tightened around mine. She pointed. 4, she said. I nodded. No reason why. Just faith. We ran to door 4. I kicked it open. And inside was the car, running, engine humming. Forest around it, blue sky, time. We jumped in. I floored it. Didn't look back. Didn't listen for footsteps. Didn't question. Not until we passed a new sign. One that hadn't been there before. White, painted, fresh. Now really even. And I finally let myself hope. Even as the wind behind us whispered, room 7 is never empty. We didn't speak for miles. The trees passed like guards watching us flee, tall and unmoving, letting us go not because we had escaped, but because we were no longer worth keeping. The road was real again. It had bends, potholes, the faded remains of white lines cracking along its spine. The engine purred like it remembered how. The world had color, depth, birdsong in the distance. And Leela, she was warm again. Her hand in mine wasn't a cold placeholder or a mirrored echo. It was hers. And that terrified me, because if this was real, then everything we had survived was behind us. But if it wasn't, if the inn had simply built a better trap, we wouldn't know until it closed. We pulled into town just after noon. The place looked normal. Too normal. People walking dogs, teenagers riding bikes, storefronts with handwritten signs advertising ice cream and shoe repair. A couple kissed in front of a flower shop. A man washed his car. A girl played jump rope on a corner, counting aloud. But every single person looked up at the exact same time. Stared, didn't wave, didn't smile. Just watched. We kept driving. I didn't look at Leela. I didn't have to. I could feel it. The tension in her shoulders, the same pulse, panic I felt crawling up my throat. This wasn't home. It was a copy. Polished, beautiful, comforting in all the right ways, and absolutely hollow. The gas station we used to stop at on Sundays was still there. Same peeling paint, same flickering LD sign. We pulled in anyway, because we needed to be sure. The bell chimed as we stepped inside. The clerk looked up and smiled. That same room, 7 smile, too wide, too symmetrical. Like someone had studied what a smile should look like, and then stitched it onto a mannequin. Afternoon, he said. His voice had no texture, no accent, just a tone. Like white noise pretending to speak. I opened my mouth, closed it. Leela squeezed my hand, hard. We left without buying anything. Outside, the car door was already open, keys dangling in the ignition. Except I had the keys in my pocket. I pulled them out. 2 sets. Identical. Maybe we never left, she said quietly. No, I replied, we did. We're just not back yet. Then where are we? I looked around. At the perfectly ordinary streets. The people resuming their movements, like puppets rewound, to the top of the scene. The birds flying in perfect formation. The clouds refusing to change shape. We're in the memory of leaving. That night, we stayed in what passed for a motel, not the inn. Something brighter. But the door still had a number, 4, not 7. Small victories. I showered. She sat on the bed, brushing her hair like she always used to. We didn't talk about the doubles. About the child in the chair. About what we'd seen through the mirror. That's the thing about real terror. It takes your voice, long after it's gone. It holds you in silence, even after the screaming stops. At some point, I drifted off. When I woke, it was still dark. But the kind of dark that feels arranged. Like someone carefully placed every shadow in the room exactly where they wanted it. I looked beside me. She was gone. Leela? I called. No answer. I sat up. The door was closed. The bathroom light off. Nothing. Until, knock, 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 7 times. Slow. Measured. Like each one was saying a word. I turned to the window. It was open. And through it, I saw her. Standing outside in her nightgown. Eyes closed. Mouth moving. Whispering something I couldn't hear. I ran out barefoot, cold air punching my lungs. Leela! She didn't respond. Didn't even flinch. I reached for her. And she opened her eyes. 7 times she blinked. And then whispered, I think they remembered who we were. I froze. Because behind her, standing in the middle of the parking lot, was us. Again. But not polished. Not clean. These versions were raw. Fractured. Bleeding in places we had never been hurt. Eyes milky. Skin peeling. Like the inn had tried to rebuild us from memory and got it wrong. And then I realized, these weren't doubles. These were us. From before. From every time we had died inside that place. Every run that failed. Every version that never made it out. And now they had found their way here. One of them stepped forward. He looked at me. Said only one thing. We left too much behind. And then the sky above us split. A line. Thin. Pulsing. And from it came the sound of hundreds of doors opening all at once. Not around us. Within us. Memories we didn't recognize flooding back like rising water. Other versions of ourselves. Other timelines. Other mistakes. All of it crashing back in one overwhelming tide. Leela screamed, not in pain. In recognition. I remember all of it. I fell to my knees. The parking lot rippled like water. The buildings dissolved. The stars blinked out one by one. And room 7 opened, not as a door, but as a sky. Above us, swallowing. Calling. Waiting. Leela crawled to me, eyes wide, terrified, and said the one thing I never expected. We weren't supposed to survive, and then we were falling again. Together. Hand in hand. Back into the dark, where room 7 waited, and this time, it had a new number carved above the door. There was no floor when we landed. Just pressure. Heavy and sickening. Like being dropped into water that didn't want you there. It pushed in from all sides. Above, below, inside. I couldn't breathe. but somehow I was still alive, still conscious, still aware of the falling. Leela's hand clutched mine, trembling. We didn't scream. There was no sound left to scream into, no air, no direction. Just the dark and that symbol above us, burned into the void lay. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, cruel, patient. We weren't falling through space. We were falling through versions, and we were being watched. When the pressure eased, we hit solid ground with no impact. One moment we were falling. The next, we were standing. In a hallway longer than the sky, lined with mirrors on both sides. Hundreds of doors, all identical, stretching farther than we could see. Each door had a number, 1 through 7, but jumbled, random, repeated. And on every mirror, a reflection not of us now, but of us then. Me with bruised knuckles and hollow eyes. Leela in her hospital gown, her lips stitched with silence. Versions of us we'd buried, ignored, rewritten. They stared back, and their mouths moved, but no sound came. I turned from one mirror to another, my face in each of them a little more unfamiliar. One version had no eyes, another bled from the ears. A third scratched at the glass, mouthing something that looked like "Don't forget us." That's what the inn was made of. Everything we discarded. Leela stopped walking. She stood in front of a door labeled 7, but beneath it, in smaller red letters, was a date. The night we met. She didn't look at me when she spoke. It wasn't the moment we fell in love, she said. It was the moment we started lying. I knew what she meant. That night, when we first clicked, laughed too loud, drank too much, I'd told her I didn't mind her scars. I had minded. Not because of how they looked, because of how they made me feel. Like I was being asked to carry something I hadn't earned. She'd smiled when I said it, and I never took it back. Never admitted it. The door clicked open on its own. We stepped inside. We were there, in the bar, younger, smiling, oblivious. Two strangers pretending to be more put together than we were. I watched myself from across the room. He laughed too loudly, gestured with his drink, said something that made her laugh, but not really. Her smile was tight. She saw through it already. "Do you remember what you said?" she asked me. I nodded, and then she added, "Do you remember what you didn't?" That hit harder. Because I didn't. Or maybe I did and just never wanted to face it. The scene paused. The music stopped mid-chord, and the entire room turned to face us, not just the doubles, everyone. The bartender, the strangers, the background noise. They looked right at us. And in a single voice, they said, "Choose who leaves." We stepped back. The room folded inward like it had exhaled, and the door behind us shut. There was no knob. No way out. Only the question, and the weight of it. "Why does it always come to this?" I asked. Leela's face was pale, but calm. Because the inn wants balance. It lets one version walk free, and keeps the rest. "You think this is the end?" She shook her head. "It's our end. But not the end." Then the bartender stepped forward, and his face shifted, into mine, then hers. Then into someone I didn't recognize, a face made of too many faces, stitched and rearranged and smiling. "Make your choice," it said. I turned to her. Tears welled in my eyes. "Let it be me," I whispered. But she shook her head. "No, we both leave, or neither of us." The room laughed. The sound was everywhere, like glass breaking underwater. "Wrong answer," it said. The floor split open. We dropped again, this time into something deeper, older, and in the pitch black space between, we passed by other rooms, not numbered, named. I saw one labeled regret, another truth, a third mother. I tried to reach for them, but they slipped by, blurred into fog. The inn wasn't just a building. It was a mind, a stitched-together nervous system made of pain. And we were inside its memory. We landed in a room smaller than the rest, a child's bedroom, stuffed animals on the shelf, curtains drawn. But every photo frame on the wall held a different face of me, at every age, alone, isolated, forgotten. Leela knelt and picked up a drawing from the floor, a crayon sketch of a door, black, with 7 red lines across it. She turned it over. A sentence was scribbled on the back in shaky handwriting. Don't open it. He never comes back out. We turned. And of course, the door was there. Not drawn. Real. Paint peeling. Slightly ajar. Something breathing behind it. Not loud. Not fast. Just waiting. I touched the knob. It was warm. Familiar. Too familiar. I looked at her. I think this is my door. She nodded. And for the first time, she didn't say we. I'm scared, I whispered. She kissed my forehead and said, then don't go alone. We stepped through together, and inside, room 7 again. But empty. For the first time ever, no mirrors, no doubles, no chairs. Just a window, curtains open, morning light pouring in. A street, a real street, our apartment at the end of it, and a sign in the window FRGTME note. We held hands. Stepped toward it, no resistance, no tricks, no in, just air and hope. But just before I stepped out, I looked back one last time and saw a boy sitting in the corner. My younger self, watching, waiting. And he said, this time, don't forget to come back for me. Then we crossed the threshold, and the inn vanished. The pavement was real. I knew it not because I touched it, but because of the way it didn't move. No warping underfoot, no heartbeat in the asphalt, no flickering of light. It was solid, honest. It smelled like morning dew and oil and sun on concrete. The air had that thick summer quality, dense but breathable, humming with possibility. For the first time in what felt like years, gravity pulled the way it was supposed to. I looked at Lila, and she looked back, blinking against the light. Neither of us dared to speak, afraid our voices might stir something sleeping beneath this perfect stillness. Ahead, our apartment stood exactly as we remembered it. Peeling white paint on the banister, 2 potted plants long dead but still upright, and the 3rd floor window cracked open just slightly, as if waiting for us. The FRGME Nout sign still hung in the window, written in marker on a torn piece of notebook paper, her handwriting. Messy, rushed, personal. And yet I'd never seen her write it. I don't remember putting that there, she said under her breath. Neither did I. And that's when the chill returned. We walked down the sidewalk slowly, like strangers unsure if the neighborhood was still theirs. The street was too quiet. No cars, no music, no distant dog barking, just the steady click of our footsteps and the rustle of leaves that never actually moved. I looked up at the sky and realized something that turned my stomach. The clouds hadn't shifted since we stepped out of the inn. Not even a little. Don't stop walking, Leela whispered. Her voice was tight, controlled. I think this place is watching how we act. We reached the steps to our building. The door wasn't locked. The second it opened, everything changed. It smelled like home, coffee, paint, dusty vents. But the stairwell was different. The carpet wasn't frayed. The cracked molding on the 2nd floor had been patched. All the lights worked. It was like someone had fixed the place up, but only in ways we'd quietly wished for over the years. Subtle things. The kind of details you notice only after they've been corrected. Wishes granted retroactively. Is it really ours? I asked. Leela didn't answer. She just started climbing. We reached our old door, apartment 3B. Same brass numbers. Same tiny dent from the time I dropped the keys while drunk and kicked the door in frustration. She put her hand on the knob, then paused. Something's off. Everything's off. No, she said slowly. I mean, this moment. This exact moment. She turned to me. You feel like you've done this before. I blinked. Every day for a year, after we left. Trying to forget. Trying to live normal again. No, she said, voice trembling. I mean, just now. This, you, me. At the door, saying these exact words. I didn't know what scared me more. The thought that we were trapped in a memory loop. Or the idea that this was real and we had just been manipulated into expecting the worst. But when she opened the door, I knew. It wasn't real, not completely, because we were inside, sitting on the couch, laughing. Her with a book in her lap, legs curled underneath. Me with my guitar, strumming something soft, The version of us that never went to the inn. That never needed to be stitched back together. That never fell apart. Leela froze. I remember this day, she whispered. I never told you, but this was the last day I felt okay. Before everything got blurry, I didn't remember it. Not clearly, but I remembered the feeling. Peace, it was a trap. The cruelest kind, not pain, not fear. Comfort. The other us didn't see us, didn't look up, just lived. The clock on the wall ticked backwards. The ceiling fan spun too slowly. Something was degrading, breaking down at the edges. Like the moment was running out of battery. I turned to leave. Leela didn't move. Come on, I said. She shook her head. This is the last version of me that still had hope. I reached for her, and she turned. Her eyes had changed. Not her eyes now, the reflections. Across the room, the other Leela looked up, right at her, at us, and she smiled, sad, gentle. Then said, without moving her lips, "Don't forget me again." The room flickered, once, twice. Then everything reversed. The couch unraveled. The walls peeled into pages. The floor lifted like a sheet being pulled. And suddenly we were falling up into the ceiling. We landed in the hallway again. Same steps. Same door. Same dead plants. But something was different. The sign in the window now read STL Hari. I don't think we're supposed to leave, I said. Leela's hands were shaking. Or maybe we already did, she said, and we're what got left behind. The door behind us creaked open again. This time, I didn't turn. I knew what I'd see. A new hallway. Room 7. Reset. Always waiting. A voice echoed behind us, childlike, mocking, but familiar. You made it out. Good job. Now you get to watch the next version try. We turned. A little boy stood there. Same one from before. The one I left behind. He looked older now, and he was holding a key. One with no teeth. No grooves. Just a smooth, silver shape. Who are you giving that to? I asked. He looked at Leela. Then at me. Then at something behind us. Another pair. Another version of us. Staring back. Just arrived, fresh, scared, still hopeful. The boy handed them the key. Smiled. And said, "Your turn." We didn't stop them. We couldn't. They walked past us like we were ghosts. Through the door. Into the inn. And then gone. I looked at Leela. Her face had gone blank. Like something inside her had clicked into place. We were never meant to win, she said. I felt it too. That deep, awful knowing. Like reading the last page of a book you didn't realize was about you. This wasn't a story about escape. It was about replacement. The inn didn't let people out. It let them fade. So the next version could try again. Behind us, the building shimmered. Not just the inn, our apartment, the entire street. It faded like a memory losing its color. And we stood in the center of it all. The only thing still real. Because we hadn't left. We'd just reached the final level. The deepest room. The one no one talks about. The mirror of us who made it out. They were never real. Just rewards. Simulations. A dream played in reverse. And now we had a choice. One final door appeared before us. Unlabeled. Unpainted. Wood grain raw and splintered. Not numbered. Just known. She took my hand. I don't want another version of me walking into this. I nodded. Then said the last true thing I could remember. Then let's burn it down. The door didn't fight us when we opened it. It just sighed. Like it had been waiting too long to be noticed. No creak, no groan. Just that breath, that exhale. Like the last sound a dying thing makes when it gives up pretending to be alive. Inside, it was dark. Not the blind. Endless dark of the inn's earlier tricks. This was intimate darkness. Close. Heavy. The kind that settles over your shoulders like grief. The kind you carry. The kind you can't just walk out of. Leela went first, and I followed without hesitation. We weren't tourists anymore. We weren't dreamers. We weren't even survivors. We were inmates. And this place, this ever-shifting maze of memory and repetition, was our sentence. There was no furniture. No floors, technically. Just steps. Endless steps leading downward in a slow spiral. Stone walls brushed our shoulders. The air thickened the further we went. The smell of ash and rust hung in it, coating our throats, forcing shallow breaths. And somewhere far below, something waited. Not a creature, not a ghost, something older, something architectural. "I think this is where it was born," Leela whispered. Her voice didn't echo. It got absorbed. "Where what was born?" I asked. She paused on the step, hand against the wall. The inn. As we descended, images began to flicker on the walls. Not screens, not paintings. They appeared and vanished like reflections in smoke. At first they were small, fractured. Someone in a hospital bed, a hand being pulled away from another, a father walking out the front door, never looking back. Snapshots of suffering, private tragedies, not just ours, everyone's. I stopped when I saw my mother, not how I remembered her, how I forgot her. Tired, blank-faced, watching static on the television. A cigarette trembling between two fingers. The moment I realized she no longer knew who I was. I hadn't been more than 12. I'd closed the door that night and pretended she'd gone to sleep. But now I saw it clearly. She hadn't forgotten me. She just didn't want to say my name anymore. "I think this place feeds on shame," I said. Leela didn't respond. She was watching herself. A version of her, as a teenager, staring into a mirror and whispering apologies to someone she never got to forgive. "I don't think it feeds on it," she said. "I think it records it, keeps it, replays it until we break, we reach the bottom. No door this time, just a room, circular, dome, like..." The ceiling arched high overhead and disappeared into shadows. At the center, a single chair. Not the kind we'd seen before. This one was stone. Carved, ancient, and chained to the floor. "I've seen this in dreams," Leela murmured, but I thought it was just... She didn't finish. Because we weren't alone. There was something sitting in the chair, slumped, still, wrapped in layers of old fabric, like gauze soaked in time. At first, it didn't move. Then it lifted its head and spoke, in our voice. "I've waited a long time for you." The face beneath the rags was blurred. Male and female. Old and young. It flickered through features like memories trying to stabilize. "You're the first to make it this far," it continued. "The others all chose the door. What is this place?" I asked. It smiled, and its teeth were mirrors. "This is the beginning, the place where the first regret was sealed." Before the inn, there was this chair. One choice. One lie. And everything grew around it like rot. Leela stepped forward, her voice steady. "We're ending it." The thing laughed. "You can't end what you built." The room trembled. Dust rained down. The chains on the chair clinked, not from movement, but from memory, as if they'd moved before. "I didn't build this," I snapped. "None of us did. Didn't you?" it asked. "Every time you looked away instead of facing it. Every time you chose silence. Every time you said you were fine. You laid bricks. You painted the halls. You opened the doors." It leaned forward, and its face became mine. "You called it home." I took Leela's hand. Her grip was iron. "We're not staying," I said. "No," it replied. "But someone must." It gestured to the chair. "You want to burn it. Burn me. Then one of you sits. One of you holds the door open while the other escapes. That's the rule. That's how this works. One gets free. The other stays watching. Forever." Leela let go of me. "Too fast." "No," I said. "Not again. We're done playing its game." She turned to me, eyes full of something between love and fury. "You tried to leave me once. Let me be the one who stays this time." I shook my head. That wasn't me. That was a version that didn't make it. And this version knows better. The creature in the chair smiled, pleased. It loved this part. The bargain. The loss. The trade. But then I pulled the matchbook from my pocket. The one I found on our very first night in the inn. The one I'd forgotten I even had. I struck a match. The flame was small, unimpressive. But it caught. The air in the room changed. The shadows recoiled. The creature's smile faltered. "You can't," it began. But I already had. I dropped the match onto the floor, and the room lit up, not with fire, with memory. Every version of us. Every failed escape. Every scream, every blink, every door. All of it caught like dry kindling and burned. The walls cracked. The dome shattered. The chair split down the middle. And the creature screamed, not in pain, in fear, because it wasn't being defeated, it was being forgotten. I grabbed Leela, held her as the room collapsed inward. The spiral stairs fell like paper. The flickering images shriveled and vanished. And in the center of it all, Room 7 cried out. It didn't want to die. It wanted to keep trying, keep testing, keep replaying. But we didn't let it. We stood there, unmoved, as the inn devoured itself, until there was nothing left, no door, no hallway, no choice. Just sky, open, blue, real. And when we stepped into it, there was no voice behind us, no warning, no echo, just air and silence, the good kind, the kind we'd forgotten how to hear. The air didn't feel like freedom at first. It felt wrong. Too light, too quiet, like the world was holding its breath, unsure whether to welcome us or swallow us whole. There was no fanfare, no final door slamming shut behind us, no proof the inn was really gone. Only the blue sky above, the breeze across our faces, and a stretch of road that didn't loop back into itself. That was it. No applause, no reward, just distance. And the unbearable question pressing down on both of us, what now? We stood there for a long time, neither of us speaking. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. My heart hadn't caught up yet, still stuck somewhere in those halls, in the chair room, in that burning scream. I half expected it all to fade, the sky to flicker like a busted screen, the road to curl back like a tongue, for Room 7 to reassemble itself behind us like nothing had happened. But it didn't. It never came. The silence kept stretching. Eventually, Leela took a step forward, then another. Her boots kicked up dust, real dust, the kind you can choke on. I followed her, slowly. Neither of us looked back. We walked for hours without speaking. Every bird call, every crackle of leaves underfoot, every distant engine made my body tense like it was a trap. I didn't trust any of it. Not the smell of pine in the air, not the burn in my calves, not the ache in my stomach that reminded me I hadn't eaten in. How long had it really been? Time had lost its shape in the inn. We could have been there for a day or a decade. I could still feel its fingerprints on me. Leela finally broke the silence. I can't remember my brother's face. The words hit like a slap. She didn't say it with emotion, just stated it, flat, broken. I didn't respond at first. What was I supposed to say? That I'd forgotten things too. That some memories were just gone. That maybe we'd traded pieces of ourselves to get out. Because I had. There were whole years of my childhood I couldn't reach anymore. Like locked rooms in my mind I no longer had the key to. She turned to me, voice cracking. He died when I was 11. I can remember the funeral. The smell of lilies. My mom sobbing. But not his face. What kind of sister forgets that? You didn't forget, I said softly. It was taken. Her shoulders dropped. Not in relief, in resignation. That was the real cost of Room 7, not the trauma, the void. By sunset, we found the edge of a town. Small, sleepy, a gas station with a flickering open sign and a vending machine that hadn't worked since the 90s. It looked like any other town, but that was exactly what made it suspicious. We didn't go in, just stood across the road, watching. What if it's another version? I asked. Another loop. Leela bit her lip. Then we do what we didn't do before. What's that? She looked at me. We remember. We slept in the woods that night. Not because we had to, but because the idea of a hotel room made our skin crawl. We made a fire. 8 chips from a gas station bag we found on the walk in. Talked about nothing for a while. Until she said something I'll never forget. Do you think it's really gone? I didn't answer right away. The fire crackled between us. The smoke stung my eyes. No, I finally said. I think it's just waiting. For what? For someone else to forget the rules. We fell asleep under the stars. The real stars. No seams in the sky. No stitched together blackness. I counted them until I lost track. just to be sure. When I woke up in the middle of the night, Leela was sitting up, staring into the dark. I sat beside her. "You okay?" She nodded, but I could see it. Her hands were trembling. "What is it?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I heard a door open. We stayed awake until morning. Didn't speak, didn't move, just listened. But there was no second sound, no footsteps, no voice calling us back, only wind and birdsong, and the sick, knowing feeling that the inn wasn't done with us. We moved on, walked into town after dawn, pretending we were just two people on a long trip. The locals smiled, asked where we were from. We said north and kept walking. The place felt real. Too real? The kind of mundane that makes your skin itch. We bought food, stashed some cash, kept our heads down. But every mirror we passed, we checked. And every now and then, one of them stared back a second too long. We rented a small place just outside the edge of town. One bedroom, no hallways, no numbered doors. We painted the walls ourselves, even if they didn't need it, just to make it feel like ours. We kept a logbook, wrote down everything we could remember. All the versions, all the days, every room, every mistake. It didn't make it hurt less, but it helped us feel real. Weeks passed, then months. We got jobs, made friends, laughed again. It started to feel like life, until the package arrived. No return address, just our names handwritten in red, inside a photo. Us, standing in front of the inn, smiling. But we never took that photo, and we were wearing clothes we didn't recognize. On the back, one sentence: "You left the door open." Leela dropped it. I picked it up slowly. The air around us changed. Cold, still, like breath holding us. Then we heard it, from the back of the house. A soft click, the unmistakable creak of an old hinge. We turned at the same time. There it was. Another door, plain wood, no number, just waiting. We didn't move, didn't speak, because we finally understood. The inn doesn't trap you. It makes you choose. And once you've seen it, you never stop hearing the sound of doors. We stood there for minutes, or hours, maybe, watching that door. Neither of us dared blink. It hadn't been there the night before. We were certain. We checked this house 100 times before we agreed to live in it. One bedroom, one front door, 2 windows. No back hallway, no basement, no attic. That had been the deal. We needed simplicity, predictability, safety. And yet now, somehow in the back of the hallway where no hallway had existed, was a door. It didn't even try to be subtle. Just stood there in the shadows, perfectly centered in a stretch of wall that had once held only paint. No cracks, no flickering, no whispering voices, just a quiet invitation. The kind that doesn't beg, it waits. I whispered. We didn't leave it open. Leela didn't move. Maybe we didn't. But someone else did. We didn't go near it. Not that day. Not that night. We moved our mattress into the living room, blocked off the hallway with shelves, a bookcase, the couch. It was laughable, like trying to barricade a memory with furniture. But it made us feel better. Not safer, just more stubborn. We didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it click, not loud, just enough to register. Sometimes it was in my dreams, sometimes not. The door never opened fully, but we never saw it close either. 2 days passed like that. We called off work, stopped answering our phones. We checked all our old notebooks, the logbook of the inn. Nothing mentioned a door following us. But that wasn't new. The inn never played by the same rules twice. It adapted, shifted, listened. We debated burning the house down, running again, changing our names. But deep down, we knew it wouldn't matter. The door wasn't a thing. It was a reminder, and reminders don't burn. On the 3rd day, the photo returned. Same envelope, same handwriting. But this time it wasn't just us in front of the inn. There was a 3rd person. Blurry, out of focus, but definitely there. And their hand was on my shoulder. That broke something in me. "Who the hell is that?" I snapped. Leela was pale. She turned the photo over. No message this time. Just a single number scrawled in red. 1. That night, I woke up gasping, sweating, heart trying to punch through my chest. Leela sat on the floor, facing the barricaded hallway, cradling something in her lap. I thought it was a blanket at first, but when I got closer, I saw it was a book. Not ours, not from this house. It was leather, bound, worn, cracked. Stamped on the front guests, page after page, names, dates, room numbers, thousands of them. I flipped through, hands trembling. There were names crossed out, others circled. Then I saw ours, mine first, then hers, both listed under room 7, no exit date, no checked out, just a note beside our names. Pending replacement. I found it at the door, she whispered. It was just there. I flipped back to the first page, the oldest entries, before room 1, before any numbering system, just words. The first door was a gift, the second a mistake, the third a mercy. After that, they kept coming. I stared at the door behind the barricade. I think it's counting again. The next morning the door was open. Not fully, just an inch, enough to see the blackness beyond. Not a hallway, not a room, just dark. Alive, waiting. Leela and I stood there side by side, not speaking. The door pulsed slightly, like it was breathing. A sound rose from behind it, faint, familiar, footsteps, ours, running, looping, trying, failing. Over and over, we backed away. The door didn't follow, but we could feel it stretching toward us. Not physically, psychically, wrapping itself around our memories, tugging at the pieces we'd buried. Later that day, I opened the fridge. Every item inside was something we'd eaten while trapped in the inn. I hadn't seen a single one of them in years. A carton of expired milk with the same missing child on the back that room 5 had once shown us. A jar of strawberry jam from the morning we found the newspaper clippings. A slice of pizza with the bite marks still in it. My bite. I slammed the door shut, turned around. The house was empty. I found Leela in the backyard. She was digging. Hands raw, no shovel. Just dirt under her nails and tears on her face. She looked up. I had to know. Know what? She pointed. To the patch of ground she'd uncovered. A shape. Wooden. Splintered. A door. Buried. Horizontal. And carved into the top 6. It had followed us here. Or maybe we'd brought it. I reached for her. Come on. We cover it up. We leave again. She shook her head. Don't you get it? We are the replacements. What? Every version that escaped, they became the new bait, the example. The proof you can make it out. But it's a lie. It always loops. We sat in silence as the sun dipped low. Our shadows stretched long across the yard. The buried door throbbed beneath us. And somewhere behind the house, the hallway door creaked again. I turned to her. Then what do? Her voice was barely a whisper. We stop opening doors. That night, we sealed it. Both of them. Nailed them shut. Poured concrete over the one in the ground. Repainted the walls. Covered every mirror. Tossed the guest book into the fire. And we told ourselves, again and again, we are not going back. But deep in the silence of that house, when the world went quiet, sometimes we still heard the latch. The soft breath of a hinge preparing to swing open. The sound of another door. We didn't talk for 3 days after sealing the doors. Not really. Words felt like triggers. And silence, true silence, was the only thing we could still trust. We moved through the house like ghosts pretending to be alive. We cooked, we ate, we slept, mechanically. No TV, no music, no phones. Even the clocks had their batteries pulled. If something was ticking, we didn't want to hear it. Because that's what the inn sounded like in its quietest moments, ticking, pulsing, waiting. But silence, we learned, doesn't stay quiet forever. It morphs, it stretches. And when you stretch silence too thin, it begins to whisper back. It started small, a breath behind a closed door, a creak where there shouldn't be movement, a reflection that hung a second too long. Leela noticed it first. She was in the shower, scrubbing her arms raw when she saw it, the outline of a handprint in the fog on the mirror. Not hers. Not mine. Too small, too twisted. Like fingers had been broken and healed wrong. She didn't scream. She just wiped it away and didn't tell me until the next morning. I saw the boy again. Not in the house. Not in a dream. In the window, just watching. Standing on the other side of the glass, his hands in his pockets, his head slightly tilted like he couldn't figure out why we were pretending. I blinked, and he was gone. But a smudge remained, cheek level. Like he'd pressed his face against the glass just before vanishing. I didn't clean it. I needed the proof. Because part of me had started to wonder if we'd never really left. That night, I went to the attic. It didn't exist before. We had checked. Measured, even asked the landlord. No attic. But now there was a thin, wooden hatch in the hallway ceiling. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes, waiting for it to disappear, waiting for the seams to reveal themselves, for the plaster to crack open and expose the game. It stayed. So I pulled it down. The ladder unfolded like it had been waiting. Dust spilled down in soft clumps. I didn't tell Leela. She was asleep, finally, after 2 days of pacing, whispering to herself, jumping at every sound that resembled a latch. I climbed. The attic was empty, mostly, and except for one thing. In the center of the floor, lit by a single bulb swaying on a cord, a chair. Stone, identical to the one in the room that burned. And next to it, on the floor, half hidden under a tattered sheet, another book. I didn't open it. Not at first. I sat on the chair, letting its cold shape press into my spine. It hurt, like sitting on history. Like being weighed down by every version of yourself that had ever lied. Then I opened the book. Inside, only one page had writing. A single sentence in jagged red ink: "You sat." That's all it ever wanted. I shot to my feet, heart hammering. The attic was still, but when I looked down, I realized something chilling. There were footprints. Not mine. Not leading to the chair. Leading away. I ran, tripped down the ladder, banged my shoulder against the hallway wall, burst into the bedroom. Leela was gone, sheets twisted, window wide open, curtains swaying like someone had just slipped through. I shouted her name. No answer. I ran through the house, kitchen, bathroom, living room, nothing. Then I saw it. A note scrawled on the living room wall in charcoal. It knocked. I answered. I screamed into the empty house until my throat was raw. I tore the boards off the back hallway. The door was gone. Only a blank wall remained, smooth, freshly painted, mocking, like it had never existed. I left the house that night, walked for hours, didn't bring my phone, didn't pack a bag, didn't even put on shoes. I just needed space between me and that thing. But everywhere I went, the world felt wrong, like it had shifted 5 degrees off center. Cars passed with no headlights. People on sidewalks avoided eye contact. A billboard flickered static even though it was digital. And when I looked in a shop window, my reflection didn't blink when I did. I made it to a motel, checked in under a fake name, collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, and I dreamed of room 7, of the boy, of the chair. But this time, the dream ended with a question: how many versions of you are out there still knocking? I woke up to scratching from the closet. Not loud, not desperate, deliberate. I stood, walked over, put my ear against the door, and heard my own voice whisper, "Let me out. I can fix it." I didn't open it. I left the motel before dawn. I walked until my legs gave out, collapsed on a bench in a park with no name. I stared at the horizon, and for a moment, it seemed solid, unbroken. Then I blinked, and the sun stuttered, flickered, reset. The inn hadn't followed us. It was us. Every thought, every echo, every unsaid thing. It had always lived in the gaps we ignored, in the versions of ourselves we locked away. And the moment we sat in the chair, we gave it permission. Now, it didn't need a building. It didn't need numbered doors or symbols on the wall. It just needed cracks in our days, in our silences, in our grief, and we'd given it plenty. I stood up, looked down at my shadow. It was too long, too slow to move. It didn't mimic me anymore. It watched. I whispered into the wind, "Leela, if you can hear me, hold on." Because I finally understood what had to happen. I had to go back, not to escape, not to fight, to find her. To sit in the chair again, not as a victim, but as a guide. To break the loop from the inside, even if it meant losing myself. I didn't know how to get there. But I knew the rules now, and I knew the sound, the latch, the breath, the promise, so I sat down, on the ground, in the dirt, closed my eyes, and said, out loud, I'm ready to remember. Behind me a door opened. No number, no symbol, just open, waiting. The door behind me didn't creak or moan. It didn't announce itself with spectacle or dread. It simply opened, quiet, deliberate, inevitable. Like it had been there all along, just waiting for me to stop pretending. The moment I turned around, the world shifted. The bench I'd been sitting on no longer existed. The sky above, once tinged with early light, now stretched wide and gray, smeared with long, pale clouds like scars across skin. There was no wind, no birds. Just the door, standing upright in the middle of the path, no frame, no hinges, an opening carved into reality. It led to dark. Not blackness. Not nothing. Dark, weighted dark. I didn't hesitate, because hesitation is how it gets you. The longer you wait, the more it takes. That's the rule. Isn't it? The inn isn't just a place. It's a test. A pressure chamber. And if you don't move when it calls, you don't move again. So I stepped through. The sensation was immediate, like stepping into water, but thick, electric. My skin crawled. My teeth itched. I felt the pressure first in my ears, then in my bones. I opened my eyes and found myself in a room. Not room 7. No number on the door. Just a room. Small, square, wooden walls too close together. Ceiling low enough to duck under. A single bulb hung from a wire above, swinging though there was no breeze. The bulb cast a sickly yellow light over everything. Dust clung to the walls in patterns that reminded me of fingerprints. Some smudged, some perfect. In the corner sat a suitcase. Old, leather, cracked. Mine. I knew before I opened it what I'd find, and I was right. Inside were pieces of me. Not clothes or books or pictures, pieces. A photo of my father's empty chair at the dinner table. The shoelaces from the first sneakers I ever ran away in. The broken frame from a mirror I'd punched at 17. The last note my mother wrote before the nurses took her away. The smell of burnt toast from mornings I never talk about. Pain doesn't pack itself. It gets packed, sealed up, hidden. The inn just unpacked it again. Behind me, another door appeared. This one was different, white, peeling. A brass doorknob stained with something dark and dry. A note pinned to the wood with a nail. She went this way. I didn't need to ask who. I turned the knob. It was ice cold. The hallway beyond looked familiar. Wallpaper that curled at the edges like burned paper. A long rug that stretched too far, like it would never end. Doors lining both sides, some open, most shut. I walked, slowly, counting the doors. 1, 2, 3. Each time I passed one, I heard something. The echo of my voice in arguments I forgot I had. Leela's laughter, distant and cracked like an old record. The boy crying, then laughing, then crying again. I kept moving. At the 12th door the hallway turned. The rug didn't. It vanished into the wall like a tongue bitten off mid-sentence. Ahead stairs. Down. Always down. As I descended, the air grew thick, familiar. Like the breath of the inn was returning to my lungs. The bottom of the stairs spilled into a room I'd never seen before. Or maybe I had. Maybe I just didn't want to remember, because in that room were mirrors, hundreds, stacked, cracked, leaning, suspended, every wall covered, and each one showed a different version of me, some younger, some older, some bleeding, some smiling with teeth that didn't belong to me. I tried not to look, but one mirror caught me, dead in the eyes, and the version inside stepped forward, even though I hadn't moved. He stared at me, same face, same scars, but colder. He lifted a hand, pressed his palm against the glass, and on the other side, my hand lifted too, not because I chose to, because he made me. I fought it. But my body wasn't mine anymore. Not entirely. That's what the mirrors do. They try you on. I snapped away before the glass could crack. The mirror behind me rippled, disappointed. Another door waited in the far wall. It was small, child-sized, painted green like the bedroom I hadn't slept in since I was 9. I opened it, and cold air hit me like a slap. Inside was a room with only one thing in it, a tape recorder, old, reel-to-reel, already playing, and on the tape, Leela's voice, screaming, then laughing, then silent, then whispering, "Why didn't you pull me out?" I couldn't breathe. The guilt rose like bile. I knew this wasn't real. Not exactly, but real enough to hurt, real enough to crack. That's what the inn does best. It doesn't trap you with fear. It traps you with truth, bent truth, burned truth, truth you buried so deep it grows teeth. I picked up the recorder and smashed it. The scream cut off. And for a second, the silence that followed was clean, unburdened. Then I heard it, soft footsteps behind me. Bare feet, small. I turned. The boy? Again. Except now he was closer. Older, more real. His eyes were mine. But hollow. He didn't speak. He just turned and walked away, back into a hallway that shouldn't exist. And I followed. He led me to a door marked in chalk. No number. Just a handprint. Small. Fresh. He pointed. Then vanished. I pushed the door open, and there she was, Leela. Sitting in a chair. Not the stone one. A simple wooden chair, plain, fragile, familiar. The kind we had in our apartment long before the inn. She looked up at me, eyes swollen, face pale, but not afraid. "About time," she whispered. I fell to my knees beside her. "I thought I lost you." "You did," she said softly. "But I found me again." She looked around. I kept walking through doors, and they kept getting smaller, until they disappeared. I've been sitting here, waiting for something real. I touched her hand. It was warm, alive. Behind us, the room began to tremble. Not violently, like it was shivering, like the walls knew something had changed. That we'd found each other again, that the game was ending. A final door formed in the wall. No handle. Just a faint outline. Leela looked at it, then at me. "No more chairs," she said. "No more replacements," I replied. And together, we stepped through. What was on the other side wasn't light or dark. It was blank. A canvas, for once not written by the inn, just waiting, and we would write the rest, together. The blank space didn't feel like nothing. It wasn't void. It wasn't silence. It was weight. That was the strange part. How something so empty could feel so heavy. Like walking into a fog made of your own breath, stretched across an endless flat horizon. There were no walls, no ceiling, no floor we could see, but we were standing, moving, breathing. Leela beside me, our steps perfectly in sync, though neither of us could say for sure where we were going. "It's not over," she said, finally. I nodded. "I know. I thought we passed the test." I thought. "There is no test," I said. "There's just the next part." We walked in silence for a while. The ground, if that's what it was, felt soft beneath our feet, but it didn't give. There was no wind, no sun. Just a pale gray light hanging around us like we were underwater, somewhere between memory and invention. This wasn't the inn. It didn't have that smell, that pull, that low pulse behind the walls. But the inn had sent us here, which meant it wasn't escape. It was instruction. The first thing we saw was a door, standing alone, no frame, no hinges. Just a slab of painted wood in the middle of nowhere. The number on it was new. Not a digit, a word. Why? We didn't open it. We walked around it. And after 20 steps, we found another. When? Then another. Who? Each door floating, anchored in nothing, facing nowhere. They weren't exits. They were questions. Leela reached for the fourth one. "How?" I stopped her. She didn't argue. We moved on. And finally, we found the first real thing in the gray. A table. Wooden. Familiar. I knew it immediately. It was mine. From the kitchen in the house I grew up in. I'd flipped it once, during a fight that ended in silence. My mother never looked at me the same after that. I stepped closer. The table was exactly as I remembered, right down to the scorch mark on the corner from a forgotten iron. "What is this place?" Leela asked. "I think it's ours," I said. "Not just mine. Yours too. All of ours." More things appeared. A bicycle with a rusted chain, Leela's first gift from her brother. A cracked snow globe, mine. From a birthday party I pretended to enjoy. They emerged like memories we weren't trying to summon, but couldn't keep buried. I watched Leela's expression change. Recognition turned to sorrow. Sorrow to suspicion. Suspicion to fear. They're building again, she whispered. This place, it's laying bricks with our regrets. The ground beneath the snow globe began to harden, form a path. Behind us, the fog trembled, and a sound began to rise, faint, like breathing, but not from lungs, from walls. We were being rebuilt. Room by room, version by version. Each item a seed, each regret a cornerstone. And the inn was watching, not with eyes, with intent. We can't let it finish, I said. How do we stop it? I looked down at the table, at the scorch mark, at the memory, and I made myself feel it, the shame, the rage, the helplessness. And then I said something I hadn't said in years. I forgive myself. The table cracked, splintered, collapsed into ash. The path behind us shivered and vanished. Leela looked at me. Her eyes were wide, so I pointed to the bicycle. She hesitated, then knelt beside it, touched the rusted chain, and whispered, "You weren't supposed to die." The chain snapped. The bicycle rusted completely, caved in. Go. That's how we learned the rule. The inn couldn't build with memory if the memory was closed. It could only use what still festered. What still stung. Regret is wet concrete. Forgiveness is fire. We walked for hours. Each time we found an object, we faced it, named it, let it go. The snow globe melted into steam. When I admitted I never wanted that party, never liked those kids, never felt at home in that version of myself. A music box Leela once used to drown out her parents' arguments dissolved into dust when she finally said, out loud, that she deserved better than silence. Each loss made the fog thinner. Each release made the ground crack under the weight it had no right to carry anymore. But the inn fought back. It began stitching the space together faster, throwing whole rooms at us. A hospital corridor, a locker room, a burning kitchen, a basement filled with boxes labeled "Don't." Some memories weren't ours alone. They belonged to the versions of us that stayed, that sat in the chair, that folded, and they were angry. They emerged from shadows, speaking in our voices. They told us we didn't deserve escape, that we'd abandoned them, that they were the reason we got out in the first place. I stood toe to toe with myself, a version that looked older, exhausted, with blood under his fingernails and soot around his collar. He asked one question, "Why did you get to live?" And I answered him with the only thing I had: I'm still learning how. He smiled, collapsed into smoke. The hallway shattered. Leela wasn't next to me anymore. The fog had split us. But I heard her voice, distant but clear, screaming something I couldn't make out. I ran toward it. Every step pulled me deeper, further, faster. Walls tried to form around me. Rooms clicked into place mid-stride, but they were weak now. Patchwork. Thin. I broke through. She was standing on the edge of something vast, a chasm. No bottom, no sound, just absence. The final door stood at the edge. No words. No number, just a mirror mounted on it. And inside the mirror, us holding hands. Smiling, normal, lying. "This is the last one," she said. "It wants us to believe it's peace." I reached for her hand. She gripped it like it was the only real thing left. "Then let's not give it what it wants." We turned away. Didn't step through. Didn't smash it. We ignored it. Because not all doors need to be open. Some just need to be forgotten. The world flickered. Hard. Like a light bulb gasping for life. Then silence. Not the heavy kind. Not the kind that whispers. The right kind. Like a breath you didn't know you'd been holding finally released. And then, sky. Real sky. Above a hill. Beneath our feet grass, damp with dew. No path, no signs. Just space. Honest space. We stood there, blinking, breathing, shaking. Leela laughed. I cried. Somewhere in the distance a bird sang. The real kind. Not looped, not mimicked. Just alive. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. We were out. really out, but we both knew the doors would always be there somewhere. Not behind us, in us, but this time we had the locks. The quiet that followed wasn't the kind you trust. It was the kind that waits. The kind that wraps itself around your shoulders like a warm blanket, but presses just a little too tightly, like it wants to make sure you don't move. We stayed on that hill until dusk, watching the sky fade from gray to amber to bruised purple. The real world, a world with flaws, with bugs, with mistakes and traffic and bad dreams, was returning to us second by second. But neither of us spoke. We didn't know if this was peace or just a pause. When we finally moved, it wasn't because we felt safe. It was because the stillness began to feel curated. As if something wanted us to keep standing still, to settle in. That was the trap, wasn't it? You don't need to drag someone screaming into a cage if you can just convince them the cage is a garden. We left the hill before nightfall. We didn't look back. The town we reached 2 days later was real. Not pristine, not pretty, just alive. The gas station clerk had bags under his eyes and a bad attitude. The motel reeked of mildew and something that might have once been bleach. The water ran rust orange for a few seconds before it turned clear, but none of it shifted while we blinked. None of it watched us. That was enough. We didn't ask the locals for directions. We didn't check the maps in the front office. We picked the motel because it didn't feel familiar. Because there was dust on the counters and dents in the vending machine glass. Because it looked like nobody had tried to sell us anything. We needed that. The inn taught us to be suspicious of anything that looked perfect. That first night, I laid on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling fan, listening to its lazy rotation. Leela was already asleep, her breath steady, her hands clenched into fists on top of the blanket. I closed my eyes and dreamed. It started with a hallway, not the inn, somewhere new, long, too long. The walls were smooth, almost soft, as if they were made of fabric stretched over something breathing. There were no doors, no lights, just a single hum, low and constant, vibrating in my ribs. I walked for what felt like hours. Then I saw it, the chair. Not the stone one, not the wood one. This one was black, high-backed, throne-like. It stood at the end of the hallway, illuminated by nothing, yet perfectly visible. And in the chair, me. Not an alternate version. Not a shadow copy, me. Same bruises, same scars, same everything, except he wasn't blinking. He wasn't moving, and he was smiling. I woke up gasping, heart pounding, shirt soaked with sweat. The motel room was still dark, but Lila was gone. The blankets tossed aside, her pillow crumpled. I sat up, called her name. No answer. Then I noticed the motel door was cracked open. My stomach dropped. I ran out barefoot, into the parking lot lit by a single broken street lamp. Cold gravel bit into my soles. She stood at the edge of the road, facing the woods. Still. Too still. I approached her slowly. She turned slowly. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken. "Did you dream it too?" she asked. My mouth was dry. "The chair," she nodded, then whispered, "It wants us back." Back in the room, we didn't speak for hours. We sat on the bed like kids after a fire drill, shaken, alert, pretending we weren't terrified. Eventually, she said, "I think we left the inn." But it didn't leave us. I didn't answer. She continued, What if we're its seeds now? What if it grows through us? Every time we fall asleep, every time we let our minds drift, it plants more of itself. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. But I remembered the chair, the smile, the stillness, and I knew she wasn't. Over the next few days, the dreams kept coming. Not every night, not even predictably. But when they came hard. Leela saw the boy again. Older now, wearing her brother's face. He led her into a room filled with doors. Each one marked with memories she'd tried to bury. One night, she woke screaming, clawing at her skin. "There were keys in me," she sobbed. And he kept unlocking things I didn't remember locking. I held her until she stopped shaking. Neither of us slept the rest of that night. One afternoon, we drove to the edge of town. The trees there were tall, ancient, and the kind that didn't move even when the wind screamed. We found a trail that led to a cabin. Old, decrepit, forgotten, but real. We stayed there. No power, no plumbing, just firewood, candlelight, and the raw, aching hope that the further we got from everything familiar, the less hold the inn would have. It worked for a while. The dreams slowed. The air cleared. We started talking again, really talking. We asked each other questions we'd never had the time, or the guts, to ask before. What was the last thing you saw before room 7? Do you think the boy was ever real? If you had a choice to go back, would you? The answers were always quiet, always complicated, always human. Then, one morning, I found something outside the cabin. Fresh footprints. Bare, small. Leading to the front door, but never leading away. Leela didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat down on the front step and stared into the forest for a long time. Then she said something that still makes my blood freeze. I think it's watching to see who breaks first. We stayed in that cabin for 2 more weeks. The silence started to sour again, not because anything changed, but because nothing did. No birds, no animals, no rain, no sound except us. It was like the world was waiting on a cue that never came. One night I asked her, "Do you ever think maybe we died in room 7? She didn't answer right away, then said no. I think we lived. But not all of us came with. That night, I woke to the sound of the chair scraping against wood, but there was no chair in the room. Only us. And in the corner, a shadow that didn't have a source. Not moving, not shifting, just waiting. We're still here now, in the cabin, writing things down, tracking dreams, mapping the silence, trying to stay ahead of whatever version of ourselves still lives in that place beyond doors. And every night, before bed, we make a promise. If one of us sees the chair again, the real chair, we don't sit, we pull the other out. Even if it breaks us, even if it takes everything. Because that's what the inn counts on, isn't it? That one day, we'll get tired. We'll forget. And when we do, the chair will be waiting, smiling. There's a kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep. It's deeper, older. A weight in the marrow that slows your thoughts, dulls your skin, and presses down on your chest like it knows you too well to lift. That was the tired I felt on the 39th day in the cabin. A creeping exhaustion that didn't break you all at once, but bled in drop by drop, quiet and unnoticed until you were drowning in yourself. Leela wasn't doing much better. She'd taken to pacing at night, whispering things I couldn't quite catch. Little phrases she swore were from dreams, fragments she woke up repeating. Most of them made no sense. It's not your turn yet. They built the mirrors first. Don't answer when it knocks at the baseboard. But one stuck with me. The chair remembers. She said it over and over one night until her voice cracked. When I asked her what it meant, she looked at me like she didn't know who I was. Or worse, like I wasn't supposed to be asking. By the time the fog came back, it was already too late to leave. It wasn't weather. It wasn't natural. It bled through the trees one morning, thick, gray, wet like breath on glass. No wind, no rain. Just the kind of haze that erases outlines. The cabin lost its edges. The forest stopped being forest and became suggestion. And when we looked outside, we saw something we had hoped we'd buried for good. A chair, not at the door, not in the woods, inside the cabin, in the corner, between the fireplace and the back window. Simple. Wood. Ordinary. Except we both knew it hadn't been there the night before. We didn't move for hours. Didn't eat. Didn't speak. We sat on the bed like children watching a spider they couldn't kill. Because it wasn't just there. It was waiting. I walked around it slowly that night, not daring to touch it. Leela followed me, barefoot on the creaking floorboards. There was no dust on the seat. No scuffs. It looked freshly made. That's not the same one, I said. Even though we both knew it was. It doesn't have to be, she whispered. It knows how to make itself feel familiar. We tried to leave the next morning, opened the front door, and found another room instead of the forest. Not fog, not trees. A hallway. Narrow, wallpapered, yellow light buzzing overhead, room numbers lining both sides, all of them 7. We shut the door fast, locked it, pushed the couch in front. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The cabin was folding, crumbling from within, not physically, spatially. The walls stretched and shrank with every blink. The window showed things that didn't match where we were. 1 second it showed the forest. The next, it showed a hallway flooded with red light. The reflection of the chair started appearing in places it shouldn't. On spoons, in the mirror behind the sink, on the blank screen of the unplugged television. Worse, we started seeing each other twice. Not doppelgangers, lagging reflections. If I moved too fast, there'd be a delay. My head turning, my lips forming words, just a fraction of a second behind. I tried to ignore it until the night Leela asked, "Have you noticed I'm blinking out of sync?" And then she didn't blink again for 2 whole minutes. We stopped sleeping after that. Tried. Failed. We'd lie down and shut our eyes, and something would begin crawling along the inside of our skulls. A presence. Not evil, just patient. Like something was walking down a hallway that didn't end, pausing at each door, wondering if it should come in yet. We took turns staying awake, but even that blurred. Time slipped. Days collapsed into themselves. We wrote notes to track our thoughts. Dated them, numbered them. One morning we found a note neither of us remembered writing. It read, "You both sat already. The rest is just remembering." That night I lost her. I woke to find the bed empty, the floor cold, the door swinging on its hinges. I followed the sound of the wind through the halls that weren't halls anymore. Just stitched together rooms from our memories. The kitchen from my childhood apartment. The school hallway where Lila first passed out from panic. My father's hospital room. A red theater curtain I didn't recognize. Behind each one, I could hear the chair moving, dragging, closer. Leela's voice echoed faintly through a wall that felt like glass. I punched it. It bled. I kept punching until it cracked. She was on the other side, sitting, eyes closed, hands limp at her sides, mouth moving without sound. I screamed her name. She didn't hear me, but the chair did. It turned. Just a tilt of presence, a bend in space, and I felt it smile. Not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly. When the glass finally shattered, the room changed. I wasn't in the cabin anymore. I wasn't even inside. I was in a wide field beneath a gray sky, alone. The chair in front of me. Empty this time, but not for long. A voice whispered from everywhere at once, "She's not gone. She's just ahead of you now." I stepped toward the chair. Paused. It didn't look threatening. It looked tired. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't a trap. Not anymore. This was the next room. And I hadn't left yet. I sat. Not because I gave up. Because I had to catch up. The moment my weight hit the seat, everything stopped. No wind. No heartbeat, no thought, only stillness, and in that stillness I saw her, Leela, sitting in her own chair, in her own version of the field, eyes closed, then open, and then slowly she smiled. The chair was never meant to trap us. It was meant to map us, to remember who we were before the rooms, before the noise, before the copies. And now, in stillness, we could begin again. Not erase, not forget, continue. When I stood, the world shifted again. Leela was beside me. No more mirrors. No more doubles. Just us, holding hands, a field behind us. Not numbered. Not named. Just open. Waiting. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid to walk through. Because I wasn't walking alone. The door didn't slam behind us. It didn't vanish. It didn't morph into a wall, or whisper our names, or do any of the things we had come to expect. It just stayed open behind us as we stepped through, as if to say, you can always come back. If you want to. If you forget. That was almost worse than if it had disappeared entirely. Because now we knew. It wasn't the door that was dangerous. It was the decision to open it again. The place we entered wasn't the inn. It wasn't the field. It wasn't the stitched, slippery memories masquerading as safety. It was something else entirely. A house. Familiar? In that blurry way dreams are familiar. A memory reassembled with imperfect hands. We stood in a living room with yellowing wallpaper, a sagging couch, and a small lamp that flickered like it wasn't sure how to stay lit. The floor creaked under our weight, but not ominously. Just honestly. The air was warm. It smelled faintly of dust, wood polish, and something burnt, but old, like the echo of a long-gone fire. The fireplace was cold. The windows were shut. There were no clocks, no reflections, just the house waiting. Leela looked around slowly, touching the edge of a bookshelf with her fingertips. "This isn't my memory," she said. "Not mine either." That was when we realized we were in its house, not the inn, not the chair, not some twisted reflection, but the place where it came from, where it learned us. We explored cautiously, like people who had already lost too much to trust the quiet. The house had 4 rooms and a hallway. No attic, no basement. 1 bathroom. A kitchen with a humming fridge and a bowl of apples that never rotted. The dining table had 4 chairs. One was missing a leg, but didn't wobble. The light switches worked, but didn't seem connected to anything. No bulbs brightened when you flipped them. No shadows changed. The strangest part, there were no doors, just entryways, archways, open mouths in the walls leading from one space to another. No knobs, no locks, nothing to keep anything out or in. On the 3rd day, the house breathed. We heard it, late at night. A low exhale, like something massive had just let go of a held breath beneath the floorboards. Leela sat up fast. "You heard that?" I nodded. Neither of us moved. We knew better. Because something that breathes is alive, and something alive can notice. The next morning, we found the photograph. It was sitting on the kitchen table, black and white, curled at the edges, a picture of the house, but not as it was now. It was newer in the photo, clean, with sunlight falling across the porch and a woman standing at the threshold. Her face was too blurry to make out, but she wore something familiar. A blue dress with little white flowers. The kind Leela had described from a dream she once told me about but swore she'd never lived. She stared at the photo for a long time. "I think it's mine," she said. "Your memory?" She shook her head slowly. "No, my future." The house began to shift subtly after that. The windows showed different views. Sometimes a garden, sometimes the sea, sometimes a brick wall with no sky. We tried to write it down, to map the changes, but the pages of the notebook would always be blank the next day. Not erased, just undone, as if the ink itself had changed its mind. Then the voices began, not loud, not angry, just whispers. At first, one, then more. A layered murmur behind the walls, soft and slow like the turning of pages. We stood in the hallway, backs to the wall, straining to hear. But the closer we listened, the more the words melted, like trying to read a dream aloud. But one phrase kept coming through. Clearer than the rest, "Someone has to stay." We stopped sleeping in shifts. Didn't bother locking the entryways with furniture anymore. There was no malice in the house, just inevitability. It was a place waiting for something to be true. And each day, it became more convincing. One morning, I woke up and found Leela cooking, in the kitchen, pan on the stove, smiling, just for a moment. Then her eyes found mine, and the smile fell away like a mask sliding off. "I don't know why I did that," she whispered. I stepped forward, took the pan from her, turned off the heat. "You don't have to." She didn't argue, just nodded, and left the room. The house wanted us to make it real. That was its purpose. It didn't punish us. It didn't trap. It offered comfort, routine, belonging. And all it asked in return was that we let it be true. Just one of us. One anchor. One dreamer. One permanent resident. We made a pact. Neither of us would stay. No matter what it showed us. No matter how convincing the life it offered. We would leave together, or not at all. So we searched every corner, every crack, looking for the exit we knew had to exist. Because even a dream has to wake up eventually. Even a house, if it's not real, has to fade. The breakthrough came in the form of a mirror, not hanging on a wall, not mounted. Just there, standing in the middle of the hallway one night, like someone had wheeled it in while we blinked. It showed us standing side by side. But behind us, reflected in the mirror only, was a door. Old, wood, brass knob. Numbered 0, we turned. Nothing. The hallway was empty. We turned back to the mirror. The door was still there, but this time open. We stared at our reflections. At the door. At the light leaking from beyond it. Leela's reflection looked at mine and said something we didn't hear aloud. Just in our heads. You already made the house. Now choose who lives in it. She reached out, touched the mirror. It rippled. And for one terrifying moment, I saw her begin to merge. Not vanish, not fade, but blend with the version inside. I pulled her back hard. She gasped. The mirror went dark. A moment passed. Then another. And then a note slid out from under the nearest archway. Folded. Old. In familiar handwriting. Mine. It said, "Don't pick the house. Pick the door." So we did what we always had. We left. Stepped through the mirror even though we couldn't see what waited on the other side. Because the only way out was forward. Even when forward looked like a wall. What came next wasn't a room. It wasn't the world. It was a moment. Floating, spinning, a choice. Everything paused as if the house itself was holding its breath now. Waiting. And then, we fell. Falling shouldn't feel quiet. It should be rush and chaos and gravity clawing at your insides. But this fall, it was silent. Slower than it should have been. Not gentle, not violent, just deliberate. Like whatever we were dropping into had been expecting us. And the longer we fell, the less it felt like motion and more like memory. Not just mine, not just Leela's, but all of them. Versions of us. Reflections. Moments we forgot we lived. People we forgot we were. Faces flickered past like snapshots soaked in fog. Me. But younger, Leela, but colder. A version of us laughing. A version of us bleeding. A version of us not together. And then impact. Soft but final. We landed in a room. Small. Circular. Pale light above, like moonlight behind tissue paper. No doors. No corners. Just a single chair in the center of the floor. We didn't speak. We didn't move. We knew what this was. Not a trap. Not a test. Not a copy. The original. The chair that had started it all. This wasn't the room that replicated your guilt. It didn't rearrange itself, or speak in riddles, or mimic dead relatives. It was simple. Honest. And that was somehow worse. There's something unbearable about being in the presence of the thing that truly knows you. Not because it wants to torment you, but because it doesn't have to. Leela took a breath. We're back. I shook my head. I don't think we ever left. Silence. Then a whisper. Faint. Like a secret being remembered by a wall someone has to remember. Or the house builds itself again. That's what it had always been, hadn't it? Not about punishment. Not about escape. But about memory. The inn, the rooms, the chair. None of it wanted to kill us. It wanted us to keep it alive. With our stories. With our fear. With the versions of ourselves we couldn't let go. Because memory is the mortar. And regret is the foundation. We weren't running from a haunted place. We were the architects. Suddenly, Leela stepped forward. Toward the chair. Not fast. Not afraid. Like she'd made peace with something long ago. "Don't," I said. She turned. And smiled. "Someone has to do it, or it starts again." "I'll do it," I said. But she shook her head. "You did it first." The memory snapped into place. The first night. The first time. Room 7. The panic. The knock. The broken mirror. I remembered now. I had run. I'd left her. She had sat. She had stayed. She had carried it so I could go. And now we were back at the beginning, because the circle hadn't finished. Until the choice was made again. But this time, we both remembered. Leela stepped beside the chair. Rested her hand on the back of it. I don't want to forget, she whispered. But I can't keep remembering alone. And that's when I knew. We didn't have to choose one. We just had to sit together. I joined her. 2 hands on the same chair. Not as sacrifice. Not as prisoners. As keepers. Because someone has to remember the house so it doesn't find someone else. Someone has to sit so others can walk away. So we sat, and the walls around us didn't rise, the shadows didn't crawl. There were no voices, no mirrors, just stillness, pure, whole, real. And then, light, brighter than before, not white, not blinding, warm, like morning through bedroom curtains, like a world not just waiting, but ready. When we stood, the chair was gone. The room was open, and the hallway in front of us didn't lead back to the inn. It led forward, to something we hadn't felt in a long time. A way out that didn't ask for anything in return. We didn't speak as we crossed the threshold. We didn't look back, because we didn't have to. We'd remembered enough. We'd left just enough of ourselves behind to keep the doors closed. And in doing so, we had finally earned the right to forget. Outside, the world was quiet. But this time, it was the right kind of quiet. No watching. No shifting. Just the sound of wind through trees, and the echo of our own footsteps on soil that didn't try to become anything else. We were home, wherever that was, because it was ours now. No inn, no rooms, no chairs, just the future. The road didn't look familiar. It didn't look strange either. It just was. A narrow stretch of gravel, flanked by pine trees that whispered instead of rustled, like they knew secrets but wouldn't dare say them out loud. We walked without asking questions, without choosing a direction. There were no signs, no mile markers, no destination, just space and the weightless feeling that comes after something ends, but before anything else has truly begun. It should have felt like freedom. It should have felt like peace. But it didn't. It felt like the moment after a scream. When your ears are ringing. When everything is too still. When you realize you're waiting for the second scream. Leela didn't speak for the first few hours. She just walked beside me, occasionally looking up at the sky, like she expected it to crack open again. I couldn't blame her. Every inch of me was braced for it too. For the walls to return. For the door with the number to appear. For the chair to drag itself out of the trees and remind us that memory was never something you get to drop. It just waits for you to pick it back up. But none of that came. Instead, we found the gas station. It looked as though it had been dropped into the forest by accident. A single-story building with peeling red trim, a rusted pump out front, and flickering overhead lights, even though the sky was bright. There was a Coke machine with no buttons, a payphone with no receiver, a bell above the door that didn't ring when we stepped inside. The man behind the counter didn't look up. He was reading a newspaper with no headlines, the pages blank, except for smudged gray shapes that might have once been words. His hands trembled slightly as he turned the page. Not from fear, from age, from memory. Coffee, he asked without looking. Leela glanced at me, then back at him. Sure, he nodded. Poured 2 cups from a machine that hadn't been plugged in. Don't drink it all at once, he said, finally lifting his eyes. They were pale and too clear, like looking through frost. Some of it's not ready yet. We sat at the counter in silence, the mugs warm in our hands. There were no clocks on the wall, no music, no prices, just a shelf of items nobody needed. Cans with blank labels, bottles filled with nothing, a map with all the roads leading inward. The man spoke again. You've been walking long. Yes, I said. He nodded, like that was the only answer that mattered. Good, he said. Means it's stuck. What is? He folded the paper slowly. The house. I froze. Leela did too. He smiled without warmth. Don't worry. I'm not part of it. Not anymore. How do you know about it? I asked. He stared into his cup. Because I stayed too long. The room didn't shift, but the walls didn't melt. But the air changed. Thicker, older, like something was remembering us back. You sat in the chair, Leela said. her voice barely audible. "I was the chair," the man replied. "For a while. Not literally. It doesn't need you to be literal. It just needs your shape, your story, your permission." We didn't understand. Not fully. But we didn't interrupt him. "When the house finds someone strong," he said, "it asks them to carry it. Not forever. Just until the next ones come. It's always looking for the next ones." "Why us?" I asked. He shrugged. "You remembered too much. Or maybe not enough. Doesn't really matter which." The bell above the door finally rang. But no one had entered. No wind had touched it. The man looked toward the sound, then at us. "You've got time. Not much, but some. Use it." "For what?" "To forget the right parts." Leela narrowed her eyes. "What if we forget too much?" He gave her a look that was both gentle and impossibly sad. "Then it'll find you again." We left without taking the coffee. Outside, the sky had changed. Pale blue, almost white at the edges, with no clouds, no sun. Just light without source. We followed the road again. And for a while, things felt normal. We passed an old bus stop with no bench. A mailbox with no house nearby. A dog that watched us from a distance but didn't bark, didn't blink, didn't move. Each step took us further from the inn, the chair, the house. And yet, the further we went, the clearer the memories became. Like our minds were sharpening the past instead of blurring it. Like forgetting wasn't the path to freedom, but a signal flare, something for the house to follow. That night, we made camp beneath a half-dead tree. No fire, no sleep, just the two of us lying side by side listening. Leela spoke first. "I think the man in the gas station was warning us." "I know, but I don't think he was telling us to run." "No, I think he was telling us to choose." And suddenly it made sense. We'd thought survival meant escape. But what if survival meant acceptance? What if freedom wasn't forgetting? What if it was remembrance without fear? What if the only way to keep the house from building again was to hold it steady inside us? Not like a wound, but like a lesson. It wasn't about erasing the memories. It was about making sure they didn't control us. I sat up. The sky had darkened. No stars. No moon. But not the oppressive black of the inn. Just night. Honest, natural, waiting. Leela joined me. And for the first time, we didn't feel chased. We felt seen. We stayed in that spot until morning. When the light came, it didn't shift the trees or change the road or erase what had happened. It just arrived, and we greeted it like something real. Something earned. Because now we understood. The house doesn't need walls to return. It needs cracks. In the mind, in the heart, in memory. So we decided to fill them with truth, with each other. With the promise to never sit in silence again. Not for it. Not for anyone. The road narrowed until it disappeared, swallowed by moss and silence. By then, we knew better than to think we were lost. Lost meant you had a destination to compare your absence against. This was drifting. Like a raft on still water, moving not because you row, but because something beneath the surface wants you to arrive. And in that stillness, the air began to change. Not the kind of change that stirs leaves or whispers through trees. This was colder, thinner, like memory itself was starting to freeze over. Leela noticed it first. She stopped mid-step, eyes narrowed, hand pressed to her chest like she was listening for a heartbeat that wasn't hers. "Do you feel that?" she asked. I did. It wasn't wind. It wasn't breath. It was presence. Not following. Waiting. The kind of cold that comes before a knock on a door you forgot you locked. We didn't speak much after that. Words felt like permission. Instead, we kept walking until we reached a clearing that felt more like an absence than a space. Nothing grew there. Not grass. Not weeds. Just dry. Cracked earth surrounded by trees that leaned in like eavesdroppers. At the center of it all stood a single cabin. Not the same one we'd stayed in, but close. Familiar enough to feel wrong. Its windows were blackened with soot. The roof sagged. A line of faint symbols had been etched above the doorway, ones we didn't recognize, but didn't need to. They weren't warnings. They were reminders. This was a place meant to remember you back. I turned to Leela. We don't go in. She nodded, but the moment we stepped away, the knock came, not from the cabin, from behind us. Slow. Hollow. 3 times. We froze. There was no door behind us, no wall, just the clearing. The knock came again. 3 times. Then a voice. Soft, too soft to come from any direction. You left the window open. Lila turned pale. I didn't, she whispered. Neither did I said. And then, one final knock. This one not from behind, not from ahead, from within, inside our heads, inside our memories. A cold little hand knocking on the glass from the inside out. That night we didn't sleep. We didn't rest. We just sat, backs to each other, staring in opposite directions, watching the trees, listening for another knock. But none came. Instead, a door appeared. Not in the cabin, in the clearing itself. Standing upright, alone, a freestanding slab of wood with a brass knob and no frame, and written across the top, carved deep into the grain, was a single word, hummo. We circled it slowly. Tried to ignore the chill licking at our spines. It wants us to think we've made it, Leela said. But we have, haven't we? I asked. We broke the loop. We remember. We're not afraid anymore. That's what makes it more dangerous. Why? Because now we'll trust the ending. She was right. It didn't want our fear anymore. It wanted our hope. Because hope has roots. Hope builds. And if the house couldn't feed on terror, it would feed on settling. We stepped back from the door. The clearing pulsed once, a subtle tremor in the air, and then we saw them. Our shadows, not attached to us, standing separate, watching, smiling. Each one holding a key. Each key shaped like a memory we thought we'd buried. My father's last words. Leela's brother's laugh in the dark. The night I left her in the chair. The morning she woke up alone. They didn't move. They just held the keys out like offers. And the door behind us creaked open. Warm light spilled out. The scent of coffee and clean linen. The hum of a radio playing an old song neither of us could name. It was perfect. It was ours. It was poison. I reached for Leela's hand. She squeezed it so tight I thought the bones would crack. Don't look, she whispered. It gets stronger when you look. But I couldn't help it. I turned. And in the doorway, I saw myself, older, calm, wearing the sweater I'd lost years ago and the face I used to trust. He smiled. Not cruelly, not even falsely. Just kindly, he said, it's okay. You can rest now. And then he stepped aside to show me the inside. A fireplace, 2 chairs, a journal with my name on the cover, and a photo of me and Leela laughing on the porch. I almost stepped forward. Almost. But Leela's voice pulled me back. Do you remember what the man said? She whispered. I nodded. Use the time to forget the right parts. And suddenly I understood. The house doesn't knock to scare you. It knocks to ask permission. It doesn't barge in. It waits for you to let it feel familiar. The window wasn't open because we left it that way. It was open because we left the idea of it open. Because we kept the memories arranged like a home instead of letting them go. I turned from the door, faced my shadow. It stepped back. The key fell to the ground. Leela did the same. Her shadow vanished before the key even touched the earth, and the door, our door, flickered, twitched, then collapsed inward, turning to splinters mid-fall. Gone, not sealed, not destroyed, just refused. The clearing was quiet again. No cabin, no shadows, no more cold, just us, breathing, together. It wasn't over. It would never really be over. Because the house doesn't exist in a place. It exists in permission. But for the first time, we had taken that back. And silence, real silence, wrapped around us like something earned, not imposed. We would walk again. Further, always further. And if the house ever knocked again, we'd remember not to answer. Because the door may look like hope, but the knock is always cold. The days that followed were quiet, but never silent. The kind of quiet that feels like someone holding their breath just beyond your line of sight. We kept moving, not because we thought there was somewhere left to reach, but because stillness was too close to surrender. Even the trees seemed to agree. They whispered less now, stood taller. They no longer bent toward us like curious onlookers, but kept their distance, as if they had seen what we carried and decided they didn't want to know how the story ends. We were changed. That much was clear. Not just older, not just warier. We walked differently, ate differently, slept with our backs to the open instead of facing a wall. Because after all that, it was never the space in front of us that was the danger. It was the past, the memory waiting to be named, to be invited back in. Leela didn't talk about the chair anymore. I didn't mention the shadow with my voice or my sweater or the half smile I had almost trusted. But sometimes, in the middle of a sentence, we would both stop, not from fear, from a shared awareness, like a shift in barometric pressure. Something brushing the skin of our minds, and we'd just wait, not for it to pass, but to decide if it was passing. The house hadn't followed us, not physically. But we'd brought the map with us, hadn't we? Etched into our heads, into our habits, into the choices we didn't know we were still making. It happened one morning while we were crossing a shallow river. Leela stepped on something that wasn't stone. She bent down and pulled it from the water, slow, unsure, and revealed a photograph, soaked, torn, but intact enough to make out the image. It was a picture of us, sitting on the porch of a house that never existed, laughing, smiling like people who didn't know the weight of mirrors or the sound of a knock inside their skull. We looked happy, not staged, not forced, real. On the back, in shaky handwriting this time, remember without building it. We didn't say anything for a long while. Eventually, I took the photo from her. It didn't disintegrate in my hands. It didn't bleed ink or fold itself into a door. It just was, and somehow that was worse, because that meant something, or someone, had left it here for us to find. Not to scare us, but to test us. Could we hold a memory and not fall back into it? Could we look at what we once wanted and not start shaping walls around it? Could we finally stop making the house again? We carried the photo with us, tucked into the back of Leela's journal. Not as a keepsake, as a reminder. A weight, a line we could trace when the days got too bright or the nights too quiet. And the more we walked, the more we realized something strange. The world didn't move on without us. It had waited, not frozen, not paused, but unfolded slowly, like pages in a book we hadn't caught up to yet. People returned. Not all at once, and not where we expected, but there were faces again, conversations, markets, cities with their own lights and rules, and places that had never heard of Room 7. And in those places, we learned how to be again, how to live. But the house didn't vanish. It watched from behind every perfect moment. A whisper of wood grain in an unfamiliar cafe table, a mirror in a changing room that flickered when we blinked too fast, an old friend mentioning déjà vu just as the room went silent. It was never there, but it always remembered. One night, years later, we found ourselves in a motel off some endless highway. Rain streaking the windows, neon buzzing like a swarm too tired to sting. Leela had fallen asleep with her hand on the journal. I couldn't sleep. The TV was off. The heater hummed. And I saw the doorknob twitch. Just once. No knock. Just the twitch, like a breath held. Like someone deciding whether to knock at all. I stared at it until dawn, and it never moved again. That's the thing they don't tell you about survival. It doesn't mean escape. It means coexistence. You carry it. All of it. The rooms. The mirrors. The empty chairs. The near versions of yourself that almost took your place. You carry them like old injuries. Some days you limp. Some days you run. But you never forget the fall that broke you. Because forgetting is what feeds it. And we are done feeding the house. Later that same year, we burned the journal. Not in fear. In peace. We stood in a clearing just outside a town that didn't show up on any map. A place with no cell signal. Where the trees didn't whisper and no doors had numbers. The fire crackled low. The pages caught slowly. And as the flames turned the last photograph into smoke, Leela said, "If it ever builds again, I finished for her. It won't be because of us." We left the clearing in silence. Not haunted, not hunted, just whole. For the first time in a long time. Because remembering isn't a curse. It's a choice. And we've finally learned how to make it without building walls. Without summoning rooms. Without inviting anything in. But somewhere far away, on a road that hasn't been walked in years, a cabin door creaks, a chair waits, and a voice, soft as breath, asks no one in particular, "Are you ready to sit?" The road didn't end. It just stopped being a road. The dirt gave way to grass. The trees stopped huddling so close, and the sky opened like a sigh too long held. Leela and I had walked far beyond the map we'd carried in our minds for years. The map made of doors and numbers, chairs and whispers. Rooms we never meant to remember but never could forget. And still, the house hadn't come back. Not really. But it hadn't let go either. We could feel it in the pauses between breaths, in the quiet that always felt a little too deliberate. Not a threat. Not a promise. Just a question we'd never quite answered. The day we reached the meadow, we knew. This was it. The end of the story, not because something was waiting, but because nothing was. No cabin, no inn, no door, just space, wind, light. The sound of birds that didn't speak in riddles. For the first time, the world felt unoccupied by memory, and that absence felt louder than anything. We built a fire that night, not for warmth, but for the rhythm, the sound of crackling, the movement of something being turned to ash. It felt like ritual, like punctuation, not to end the sentence, but to mark that it had meant something. Leela sat across from me, knees drawn to her chest, eyes half closed. "We're really out, aren't we?" she said. I nodded, though a part of me wasn't sure. "You think anyone else ever made it this far?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But if they did, they probably didn't talk about it." "Why not?" "Because talking makes it real again." She nodded. Understood. Of course she did. She always had. We slept under the stars that night. No roof above us for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. And for once, there were no dreams. No knocking. No reflection of ourselves sitting just out of sync, waiting to be noticed. Just sleep. Quiet. Honest. In the morning, I woke to the sound of wind through grass, and a shape on the horizon. Small. Plain. A building. My stomach clenched before my brain caught up. Not again. But Leela was already standing, already walking toward it. She didn't look back. Didn't slow down. As if she'd been waiting for it. As if this had always been part of the ending. The structure was a single room. No windows. No steps. Just a wooden door ajar. No number. No name. No key. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and time. Not rot. Not mold. Just age. There was nothing on the walls, nothing on the floor, except a single chair, and on that chair, a book, closed, old, covered in dust, but not forgotten. Leela reached for it first, brushed the top clean with her sleeve, then handed it to me. "I think it's ours," she said. I opened the cover, blank pages, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, no titles, no chapters. But on the very first page, in careful handwriting I recognized but couldn't place, was a single sentence. "This is the room that doesn't remember for you." I didn't understand, not at first. But the more I stared at the words, the more it began to make sense. This wasn't the house. This wasn't the memory trap. This was the cure. A room that didn't hold your stories unless you chose to write them. A room that didn't build itself out of your fears, regrets, or grief. A room that stayed blank unless you filled it. A room that didn't remember, because it didn't need to. We sat together on the floor, opened the book to the second page, and began to write. Not about the rooms, not about the chair, not about the echoes or the house with the door that kept changing. We wrote about after. We wrote about walking and coffee, and the wind through trees that didn't want anything from us. We wrote about watching someone you love forget your face, then watching them find it again. We wrote about choice, and what it means to carry your past without feeding it. When the book was halfway full, we closed it, not because we were done, but because we were ready to leave it there, to leave it behind, not buried, not hidden. Just placed gently on the chair, in the room that wouldn't remember. So if someone else found it, if someone else ever walked this far, they could read our story and decide their own. They wouldn't inherit the house. They wouldn't awaken the mirror. They'd simply understand someone had come before, and they'd made it through without building more rooms. Outside, the sky was brighter, not a metaphor, not a trick. Just weather, and that felt like the most sacred thing in the world. Leela looked back once. Then never again. Neither did I. They say memory is a kind of architecture, that we build homes inside ourselves for the things we can't let go of. But maybe, just maybe, if we leave the door open and stop knocking, the house will forget us too. And that, finally, is freedom. Not escape. Not forgetting. Just the quiet, steady decision to stop making it real again.